CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, February 28th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, light snow, -5, feels like -13. In Smiths Falls, it is -4. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The LRT is back to full service after a problem at Turner's Pasture Station. Also, Transport says train service has resumed with minor delays at some stations. Earlier, trains were held at stations because of a stopped train. And we'll continue to bring you updates on the LRT as it develops on this snowy Tuesday morning. Meanwhile, a winter weather parking ban is set to go into effect this evening as city crews work to clear the streets. City News reporter Chris Scurries with the details.
That parking ban will go into effect at 7 p.m. and will allow crews to clear the residential streets later.
So our goal would be to get into those residential streets during the nighttime.
The area manager of Urban Roads is Bryden Daniels, who tells me the drive is not that great.
High wind, so a lot of blowing snow around as well. The heavy snow started right around 4 a.m. to 4:30.
Major delays were seen this morning with Ottawa school buses. OC Transpo warning of delays if you're taking public transit as well. We are expecting totals about 15 centimeters with possible freezing drizzle this afternoon. Chris Curry, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
That snow still impacting the roads across Ottawa, and we're in for still some freezing precipitation potential throughout the afternoon. So the bulk of the heavy snow is tapering off throughout the afternoon, but we also have that risk of some freezing drizzle mixing in. This is as temperatures climb to a guaranteed high of -1. Overnight tonight, we're down to near -8, and we have a chance of flurries Wednesday, Thursday. The guaranteed high today, -1.
City News time is 10:03. The Canadian economy stayed flat in December after 5 consecutive quarters of growth. StatsCan says real gross domestic product was unchanged in the last 3 months of 2022, despite higher household and government spending, as well as a stronger trade position for the country. The economy contracted by 0.1% in December as goods producing industries declined. However, a preliminary estimate suggests the economy bounced back in January with 0.3% growth in real GDP. And some MPs are calling for Google to take the hot seat over its move to temporarily block news access to some of its Canadian users. The House of Commons Heritage Committee is meeting today to discuss whether to summon leaders of the tech company to testify. Last week, Google confirmed to the Canadian press that it was limiting news access on its search engine to less than 4% of its Canadian users. I am Damilola Onime. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Sam Laprade. Sam Laprade, guess how long she took to get to work today? I don't know why I'm talking about myself in the third person, but it took me an hour from Richmond. So just to give you a sense of what the roads are like, lots of people out there not donning their winter tires. And I know our colleague here, David Smith, talked about winter tires during the Talkback Hour. I listened the entire way here and had a few choice words for those people driving around me without winter tires. So take your time on the roads today and be safe and get where you're going, and hope your day is okay and you don't end up talking to a police officer today about an accident. We don't want that. We have a very big show for you today. Lots of different perspectives today. A couple of city councillors joining us. We're going to kick off with City Councillor Riley Brockington. He, of course, represents River Ward, also a member of the Transit Commission Committee. Good morning, Riley.
Good morning, Sam. Thank you for having me on.
How was your drive? Did you make it to City Hall today, or are you working from home today?
No, I chose sort of the middle option, which is the ward office in River Ward, and not too far from my house, but I have to be out and about today, and just safer to stay, and I think more efficient to stay close than have to go back and forth from City Hall. But the roads are sloppy.
They are, absolutely. And I know those crews are working hard, but certainly it's going to take them a while with all the accumulation we're going to see over the day. So lots of patience for everybody. We're hoping no one's speeding today, Riley. We know that those speed cameras have caused a lot of chatter within the community. Talk to me a little bit about what we currently have in terms of infrastructure for those speed cameras.
Yeah, the speed enforcement technology is still fairly new across not just Ottawa, but Ontario. The provincial government provided the authority for municipalities to use this technology a couple of years ago through provincial legislation, and their use are limited to school and safety zones. So municipalities don't have carte blanche to use this technology anywhere within their cities. They really are restricted to school and safety zones. City of Ottawa to date has stuck with school zones. It measured speeding issues in every single school zone before the technology came to use and prioritized those zones. And the city's taken a cautious approach with approximately 15 new locations added within the last couple years of this technology. So this budget year, the city has identified a number of locations for the next round, and a few are not in school zones. Cities identify sort of high-speed corridors and some community zones close to parks where they believe that this would come and be beneficial. So that has got people talking. The program is definitely expanding. This is a program I do support, and it as you said, has got people talking.
For sure. So give me a sense of the revenue that's generated by the current cameras.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers at my fingertips, but it is, I think, significant in the grand scheme of when you look at the number of locations where the technology is in use, and the number of infractions or times that tickets are issued is quite high. And it goes to show that in the first few rounds of unveiling the technology, the city identified sort of those high-speed, high-risk areas, and significant number of tickets have been issued. I remember after the first year, they did a before and after speed survey where they measured speeds before the technology came in, and then after, once people were aware that the technology was in place. All zones have to be signed that you are about to enter speed enforcement zone and when you're leaving, and the speeds within those zones have plummeted. So there's definitely some positive effects on driving habits when the technology is in place.
For sure. I know one camera that I just happen to hear a lot about because a lot of my friends unfortunately have gotten tickets there. Someone I know got 5 tickets on Greenbank Road right near Sir Robert Borton under the railroad tracks there. And so that is just one example. Of course, they're all around the city. So when you see people getting multiple tickets, is there anything police can do, or is it just that's the way it is? They're going to have to pay those fines.
Well, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. There are mechanisms in place that if you wish to dispute a ticket, you can, and people are encouraged to review their options before they elect to pay the fine. What's different is that there are no demerit points issued on the registered owner of the vehicle. The ticket goes to the registered owner of the vehicle. So if I'm driving my dad's car, for example, and I go through a zone and I speed, he gets the ticket. So there'll be some interesting conversations, I think, happening in some families. But all this to say, this is meant to curb behavior. Despite what people think, this is not a deliberate cash cow. That's not intended. This doesn't go into the open coffers of the city. Again, it must go back to road safety. This is implemented, and why I support it is it's got to curb behavior. We have a speeding problem in this city. I'm particularly concerned about residential neighborhoods where speeding is out of control in many neighborhoods. And police can't be everywhere. They enforce speeds, and I know when we were first talking about this, the former police chief, Charles Bordelot, speaking with him, he was supportive. Police chiefs were supportive of this technology. We've got to have this in the toolbox to help address speeds that are out of control.
So when do we see the new cameras come into play, Riley?
Well, the budget has to be passed. Good timing with the question. Tomorrow, the city council is likely to pass the budget, and then once staff have the authority to enter into these, tenders or contracts, they'll go ahead and you'll see them rolled out and implemented throughout the year 2023. There are some locations, the most recent staff report said they have to work with Hydro Ottawa to make sure the location has the electrical capacity for the technology that needs to be implemented, but neighborhoods that have been identified, streets have been identified, we'll see this likely come in late spring through the summer.
Mm-hmm. We're speaking with Councillor Riley Brockington from River Ward. This is just one example of what's happening in the budget. The budget, as you mentioned, hopefully being passed tomorrow. How have you felt about the process, Riley?
It's long. It feels a little rushed this year. Long but rushed at the same time. Following an election, the budget is always pushed into the actual calendar year, and when the draft budget was released February 1st, it triggered basically a month-long set of meetings. There's a major meeting happening right now, Community and Social Services, on the eve of the actual budget vote. And coming out of an election, I have pages and pages of issues and concerns from my community that we recorded when we went door to door, that we try and action, not just in this budget cycle, but literally over the term of council. And I reflect on that throughout the term. So I think for my new colleagues in particular, they felt it's been a very busy month. February just flew by. But the budget process is so detailed. It literally is a line-by-line process, and it's to address and identify the priorities that the people of Ottawa have raised. So I expect, despite the fact that we've had meetings all month, that tomorrow's meeting will go long, that not just debate, there'll be a number of motions that my colleagues and I will put on the floor. But it's a much-needed process. This budget needs to reflect the priorities of the people of Ottawa, and we need to ensure that what we've heard, what we continue to hear throughout the year, is reflected in that document.
We spoke yesterday with your colleague, Councillor David Brown, and here's what he had to say about the budget.
We need to start looking at how we're spending money, and when we do that, and this comes back to the service review group that the Mayor and Councillor Curry have spoken about publicly several times, my expectations for that working group are going to be quite high, because we need to make sure that what we're spending is where we should be spending these public tax dollars.
How do you feel about that sentiment from your colleague?
Yeah, I think when you have a budget over $5 billion, the public has an expectation that you're just not going to blindly throw a 2.5% increase to every budget line in the city, that departments need to, on an annual basis, demonstrate the money that they need to provide services to the people of Ottawa. And I think it's healthy to do a review. Now, I don't know the scope or the depth that is being contemplated by some of my colleagues, but I think it's healthy, and it's in the taxpayers' interest and people who receive service that there be a review on some sort of cyclical basis. I don't know whether you do the whole budget all at once. Maybe you do it by department, similar to what an auditor does, but I think it's important that we prove to the public that their money is being spent as efficiently and effectively as possible, and at the end of the day, you don't impact the services that they rely on from the city government, that they cherish and that they require.
Appreciate your time always. Thank you, Councillor Brockington.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
City Councillor Riley Brockington joining us for River Ward, of course, also a member of the Transit Commission Committee. Lots of big discussions, of course, around this budget. We're going to be following very closely tomorrow at Ottawa City Hall. We'll have our eyes and ears there and bring everything to you as we hear it. When we come back, we're going to talk about eviction notices. there's a backlog, and I want to find out why. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
We can be hurt. We can be bruised. We can be broken. Slowed down, confused, and even numbed. But we can't be defeated. We're built on a foundation that's strong, our mission unwavering, and together we'll beat as one.
Long way from Nashville, and mama, I tell you that. Performed from Montreal to Boston to Los Angeles. But Toronto, that's my chosen home. Sure, when I'm walking down Yonge Street, I see some funny people who have the nerve to point the finger at me. Grin and smile and whisper. My song was #2 on local radio. Sold 10,000 in Toronto alone. Turned down Ed Sullivan because they asked me to remove my makeup. Wouldn't do American Bandstand because of their segregation policies. I was just being me. Never tried to explain myself to anyone. And besides, none of that to worry, Jackie, because I know I look good. Got a new way of loving, baby. Thought I want to teach it to you.
Jackie Shane was a pioneer transgender soul singer, a central figure in the Toronto R&B scene. She helped shape what we know as the Toronto sound.
As the fighting continues in Ukraine, thousands of people are fleeing for their lives, forced to leave everything behind. You can help them. Your donation to the Humanitarian Coalition will provide food, water, shelter, and medical care to the people of Ukraine who urgently need it. Call 1-855-461-2154 or donate online today at together.ca. That's together.ca. The Humanitarian Coalition. Together, saving more lives.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, let's talk about evictions. So we've seen this on both sides, the landlord side and the tenant side. So we've seen landlords that want to, let's be honest, get more money for their properties. So they want people to move out so they can renovate and jack that rent up, right? Especially with the rental market like it is. Not all landlords, but some. And on the other side of it, we've seen tenants that are not paying their rent. So therefore, the landlord has to keep funding that particular property, and it is very stressful on them, especially if it's maybe, a family that's invested into a townhome or something like that, and they're in a situation where they don't have that kind of liquid funds to be used for that property. We wanted to get to the bottom of this with Michael Teal today. Michael's from Quinn Teal Minot LLP. How are you, Michael?
Very good, thank you.
Michael, let me ask you, those two scenarios, is that the majority of what you see in your work?
Probably the number one application is the termination for non-payment of rent. It is it's the most common application at the Ontario Landlord Tenant Board, and it's the most dominant one right now. There's certainly been an uptick N12 applications, which is the termination for landlord's own use or for purchaser's own use.
Okay, so let's break it down. So people, we know that the pandemic was hard on people, and there was a lot of sort of grace given during that time. Has that caught up to us now?
It's still catching up to us. Still catching up to an awful lot of landlords. Pre-pandemic, typical, I would say an average application at the Landlord-Tenant Board for non-payment of rent was a couple of $1,000s. And now, if you just go and watch any hearing, the rent arrears are in the tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And those applications are still working their way through the system. And those are permanent, severe losses that landlords will never recover.
So people are living somewhere for 6, 7, 8, 9 months. The hearing comes, and they just are walking away.
Well, they will walk away. But 6, 7, 8, 9 months would be nice if it was only that. It will take that long from the day that you file your application to evict to get a hearing, if not more. And by that time, many landlords have already suffered 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months of non-payment by the time they get around to doing their applications and following through the process. And when I say that, I'm talking about mom and pop type landlords who are not familiar with legal processes.
Right. So what is the law? If someone hasn't paid their rent for how long before someone can sort of start some action towards them?
Okay. If you follow the law precisely and specifically, the day after rent was due, if it was not paid, the landlord should serve a notice of termination for non-payment of rent. Wait 14 days. If the rent is paid, the notice is void. If it's not paid, on the 15th day, they can apply to the Landlord-Tenant Board. In the good old days, you would have had a hearing within 2 weeks. And in the present Landlord-Tenant Board world, you'll have a hearing sometime in the next year.
Wow. What a difference. So
huge.
So is the difference because there's so many, or are the resources less?
I have my own pet theory. I've been doing this for 27 years, and there was a time when 11 adjudicators in the Eastern Ontario office of the Landlord and Tenant Board could keep the entire eastern region of the province up to date within a month of hearings, within a month of applications. It's not the number of applications, it's the structure of the Landlord-Tenant Board in the new digital world of Zoom hearings and its method of structuring hearings, of how you're supposed to do it. That is the problem.
Interesting. And on the flip side, we spoke about, tenants not paying, but landlords that are kind of looking around at the rental market and thinking, okay, well, I'm getting maybe $1,500, but if I updated the kitchen and maybe I made an investment of $20,000, I'm going to get $2,500. How are those moving through the system?
Sure. And there's a fair amount of that. I just don't know that I would ascribe kind of the sinister tone to that some people do. Right? It's a landlord owns a property and they want to improve it. I think that's generally good for the economy. So they, that's the process they want to follow. It's called, there's a form called an N13. It's a 120-day notice. The tenants get to come back after the renovations are done. But whether they actually do come back or not, or whether the landlord negotiates cash for keys, that happens. There's no question. And I just don't, there's more of it.
So do they come back, though, Michael, at what rate of rent?
The exact same rent.
Oh, they do?
And so that is actually a huge disincentive to do renovations because landlord's going to evict the tenant for on an N13 for whatever period of time it takes to do the renovations, and then say, okay, well, now welcome back at the same rent, and I've just spent, $30,000, $40,000 on a reno to get the exact same return. It's unlikely, right? It's not a likely scenario. usually a landlord will want to, if they want to improve their property, they'll want to negotiate an end of the tenancy, not a move out and move back in.
You used a term I've never heard before, and maybe it's just I'm not calling it that, but cash for keys, meaning they give them a financial incentive to move on.
Yeah, and that's a new term of art that is increasingly common. Cash for keys.
Interesting.
It's not illegal. It's fine. You can basically you reach an agreement to terminate the tenancy in exchange for compensation. And it's quite frankly, it's encouraged by the fact that the Landlord-Tenant Board is so inefficient. It's forcing people to find ways to solve their problems without the Landlord and Tenant Board's help.
And that doesn't sound like it's a good thing.
Well, some people make a lot of money. Some tenants make a lot of money as a result of it. They, arguably they're going to spend it in an increased rent somewhere else based on market rents. But it's, what do you do if the entity that is supposed to make the decisions, adjudicate the disputes, apply the law to the facts, if it's not doing its job, you leave the people to solving their own problems. I think the higher number of resolved cases at the Landlord-Tenant Board now are a reflection of the fact that so much time has gone by that the parties don't care anymore. Right? They've moved on. The tenancies have resolved on other reasons, for other reasons that have nothing to do with the original applications.
Mm-hmm. I just worry about affordable housing, right? And just you see people having to move out and then not being able to find something comparable. But this cash for keys, we've heard that sort of scenario play out here in Ottawa quite a bit.
Sure, it happens regularly. It happens all the time. It's an interesting scenario in rental housing that the rental laws are effectively create an inflation-protected living arrangement at the expense of the landlord for the tenants, right? Because the annual guideline rent increase, right, that what a landlord is allowed to increase the rent by for a sitting tenant is capped to an absolute maximum of 2.5%.
But is that not buildings built before a certain time? Buildings built after a certain time is different, right?
So buildings after November of 2018 do not have a rent cap. So they can be, the rents for those buildings can be raised to any amount once a year and by any percentage. But anything before 2018 can be raised only by the annual guideline increase amount, which is maximum 2.5%.
I have learned so much from you today. Thank you, Michael.
No problem.
I appreciate your time. Michael Teal joining us from Quinn, Teal, Minot, and Grodzecki LLP. Appreciate his time today. When we come back, another councillor will be in the house here at City News. Lock it in, everyone.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi there, this is Meg from Fit Over 50. In our next workout, we're going to be using weights for a full body workout. You can expect both beginner and advanced options. See you then.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
At Celebrate Ottawa, we love showing you something a little different. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that prove Ottawa is a vibrant and exciting city. We'll entertain you and we'll even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Ryan, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train.
She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslin and I'm with The Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
For local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley, this is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, February 28th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, under a snowfall warning with light snow. -5 is feeling like -13 in the wind. In Smiths Falls, it is -3. And here's what's making news this hour. Major delays on the roads this morning and a familiar advice to slow down and drive to the conditions. City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi telling us the bulk of the heavy snow will taper off in the late afternoon. And we might see some freezing precipitation as we go through the afternoon. We are looking at upwards of 15 centimeters of snow by this time this is done today, so be cautious out there. Also, transport warning to also expect some delays if you're using public transit, so give yourself lots of extra time for your commute. And that issue with the LRT has been fixed. Trains are back to full service with minor delays at some stations. A citywide winter weather parking ban goes into effect at 7 p.m. And as of today, if you have a government-issued mobile device, you can't have TikTok on it. A statement from the Treasury Board president says the ban of the social media app follows a risk review by the Chief Information Officer of Canada. The ban is a precautionary measure that brings Canada's policy in line with international partners. Both the US and the EU have recently banned government staff from using TikTok on work-issued devices. Denmark's parliament has also urged its lawmakers and employees against having TikTok on phones, citing a risk of espionage. City News time is 10:32. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I cannot think of a street that I've talked about more in the last year than Wellington Street. And I know Tim Tierney feels the same way, City Councillor for Beacon Hill, Searville. Hello, Tim.
Good morning, Sam. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Wellington Street is all the buzz. Everyone's wondering what's happening with Wellington. Let's back up a little bit. You know, this time last year, of course, coming out of the convoy time, such a challenging time in our city, that street got locked down. We didn't really know when it was going to open. A motion was passed December 31st, it was sort of decided it was going to be closed until then, and a decision was recently taken. Walk us through then, from then on, Tim.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Sam, is, back during COVID times and where people were working at home and, I think we learned a lot about what happened with the occupation and the protest over the 3-week period that nobody ever wants to relive again. I think it was quite heavily reported that a new style of policing was required, and I have full assurances from our new chief. He's a very different kind of sheriff, and there's going to be a more proactive, and we've seen it on a couple of occasions already, so we feel quite comfortable that that policing aspect has been solved. But what other items really have led to us having to make a decision is, first of all, if the feds do want the street, they can always purchase it from us. When those conversations are still ongoing, and that could happen one day. But the second thing is, originally there was discussion that federal government workers would not be going back to work. Obviously, we all know that's changed. It's going to be 2 to 3 days a week, and we're certainly seeing the traffic impacts now, backups on the bridges, and having that route open will open up the valves, I guess you could say, for our traffic in the downtown area. Right now it's telling you, which I find comical, sometimes it's actually quicker to drive around through Quebec to get to the other side of the city, depending where you are when you punch it into the old Google machine. So that's not appropriate for our citizens.
Right.
So we want to do this in a very safe and phased approach. I can give you a quick update that they're looking at the light sets that have to be reinstalled. They're timing the moving of the barricades. They're working with our EMS and police services, and we anticipate it will be more towards the end of March, but that street will reopen.
Well, that's good news.
I
mean, it's good news let's talk about it from an emotional perspective. It's good news for the city to have that open again. It was such a dark time in our city. I think the people, especially in the downtown core, will welcome it because it is a reminder every single time. Even for myself, Tim, I'm only down there maybe once a month, twice a month. It's a reminder. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, there we go again, right? It plays on your mind.
Oh, and it's absolutely disgusting. It doesn't reflect the beautiful city of Ottawa. When you go down there and you see these concrete blocks and jersey barriers just all over the place, I want to see that street revitalized, cleaned up, and we did, working with the local councillor. Look, you don't need 6 lanes wide. One of those lanes, we're going to make a temporary cycling lane, so there's opportunities there. And then great discussions about, hey, maybe on a weekend, when it's not a work week, we could have some kind of festival, maybe some street hockey, and we can quickly, it's very easy to put temporary closures at the end of the streets and do some kind of festivals or kind of a dinner night on the street. So lots of talks have already started around that. So it's going to be an exciting year for Wellington. So
that's fantastic. So there's kind of the emotional side of it, the money side of it. You're saying, listen, feds, you can buy this. I don't know if you know what the price would be, but certainly, you're welcome to buy it. It would mean a very different look for our city if they were to buy it, because of course the assumption would be they would change it, Tim.
Yes, that's right. And it's almost a bit of a 3-ring circus right now, Sam, because we had this project, and you follow City Hall closely, where they were talking about a tram system coming from the Gatineau side down to Ottawa, and there was 2 routes. One was the suggested route by our city, which would be the under Sparks Street, which again, we can talk about Sparks another time, or Wellington Street. So that was on the books. That was planned to go ahead. Fast forward, we have the occupation, and on top of that, now we're back to, okay, what do we do with the street? Maybe the tram would run down a part of Wellington instead. They can pedestrianize some of it. And by the way, with all that money, what are we going to do for Sparks Street? Because we want to revitalize it. Let's face it, it's always been a dog's breakfast on Sparks, and we want to make sure that we spruce up that downtown core, that parliamentary district. But it takes a lot of money. They have the money, and they seem to have willingness to want to do something with it. So the conversation will continue. I anticipate that they want to move a little quicker now, because I think they thought they could just say, no, keep the street closed. Well, it's the City of Ottawa street, so we have the authority, and we're opening it back up, but we're always there to listen and to work. And bureaucracy's slow. Well, I think this might have just sped it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the pressure as well, from businesses and residents to, the convoy is over a year now. We've seen the report from the Emergencies Act. Let's sort of get on with the day. Are you worried at all about the safety down there, Tim? I mean, we know that, there's the Prime Minister's office. There's obviously we saw, the horrific death of Nathan Cirillo at the War Memorial. I mean, there's been lots of sort of challenges, including at Parliament Hill. So are you worried about safety at all down there?
Look, Sam, of course, nobody wants to see those kind of situations, but just pushing a fence back further and further and further just means it's going to take place on that other side of the fence. So it's always a concern. I think there's new roles for the Parliamentary Police Service now that didn't exist before. So it will be up to them to be able to continually to police that area. But at the same time, I'm not as concerned. Many other large states have it, basically you can drive right up to the door in most places. Now, when it does come time to having the larger discussion about what they want to do with Wellington. You look at Washington with at a flip of a switch, bollards pop out of the ground and streets are secured immediately, locking people in or locking people out, and that's kind of where their head should be going now. But I'm less concerned. I think we have a much better plan when it comes to protests or security in general, knowing who actually has responsibility for what.
So when this eventually opens, Councillor, we're speaking with Councillor Tim Tierney from Beacon Hill, Silverville. When, you get the date, and I'm just making this up, it's whatever date. I'm not even going to say because I don't want to predict. So let's say you say, okay, this is the date, it's going to open on that day. Does it just open, or are you planning on recognizing it at all?
No, I think we're just going to soft open it. I mean, it's going to be one of those things. And then, of course, as like anything, making sure the kinks are worked out. And then, of course, letting the rest of the public know that it is an option. But I won't be standing out there moving a barricade and waving with a sign or anything.
I was looking forward to that picture. So
I love opening. I opened the ramp when we had it closed for 3 years in the east end of the city. Right. And I got more honks and waves. But this one's a little more sensitive. I think we just want to make sure there's a smooth transition on it.
Fair enough. I think a lot of people will be breathing a sigh of relief. I think about the business owners. Councillor, you and I have spoke about, the resiliency of those business owners, especially in the downtown core, and what they've been through. And I just hope that this is just one more step to having a really successful spring and into summer tourism.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Let's talk a little budget. So tomorrow, of course, big day at City Hall. Are you comfortable with where you are at, where you and your colleagues are at in terms of this budget?
Yeah, like anything, it's a lot of balance to be able to get to this point. It's been, good discourse and good discussion back and forth. But at the end of the day, the budgets are passing quite easily with some minor modifications here and there. But I'm feeling in a comfortable spot just because, I just got my tax bill, and I'm happy to pay up to another, just over 2% to 2.5%. I'm comfortable with that, but I think the rest of the citizens of Ottawa feel the same. We did do a lot of chat sessions with the public, and that was the sentiment I surely got. As a matter of fact, it's interesting, some people's view of where a budget should go, and we're there to listen. We were standing in Place d'Orléans with my East End colleagues, and one gentleman came up and says, for a cup of latte a day, we could add this on, and if we increase taxes to 7%, like Toronto, we could have golden this and golden that. And of course, that created a big discussion with the other people that were standing around saying, don't you dare raise taxes. So it's always tricky to make sure you balance the service, that we don't lose service, but also keep that tax affordable, especially now. Again, the impact assessment was bumped again, but that's coming for us one day, and I want to make sure that we actually are in a good place when we hit that point.
Councillor, will anybody sort of wake up with this budget and say, I've lost something, I've lost a service, I've lost a program?
No, I don't see that at all, Sam. As a matter of fact, I think there's a lot of areas that the city does a really good job on. I'll give you a good example. I just opened up a local community center that was closed for, 2 years due to COVID, and as we rebuilt it. We are really good at operating city programming. Of course, that's ones that you can sign your kids up for camps and things like that. I'm seeing an expansion of a lot of those camps. That's because they fund themselves essentially. But I think we're going to see a lot of really good things. I think you're going to see a lot of roads resurfaced, which is something that I'm hearing about time and again. But we won't be doing any kind of sexy, big grandissimo project in the next year or two, maybe this whole term. We've already laid those tracks with our new central library, which we're all really excited about, and it's under construction. LRT Stage 2 is under construction, but we won't be adding to the list of let's do something cool. It's unfortunate, but everyone's struggling right now with inflation rates, the cost of everything going through the roof, including food. So we don't want to have to be in a position where we raise taxes any more than we have to.
Councillor, I don't know if you know, but it's snowing outside.
Oh my God.
So on a day like this, as a city councillor, obviously you're watching from a transit perspective as well, transportation perspective, watching the roads. What does a day like today mean for us from a budget perspective?
Yeah, you know what, Sam, we've been very lucky well, I guess it's 4 years ago now, when I was transportation chair, we decided to increase the budget to match the realities of our winter. We've been in the black ever since. We'll have to keep calculating. I know last year we did quite well again because it's calculated based on calendar year. But we have had, this is the 15th snow event this year, and I want to give a tip of the hat to Brian Daniels and Quentin and the whole crew out there. They're working nonstop, Sam. They're plowing, then they're removing, then they're switching to potholes, and then they're plowing and removing and switching back to potholes. So it's a lot of thankless work. I always like to give the tip of the hat, or give them a wave when I see them, or a pop by the offices and bring them some donuts on occasion. Thank them, because it's been a grueling winter. I can't remember a winter like this in a long time, but they're doing a terrific job. But I appreciate everyone's patience out there. They're going to be going very hard today. I actually have a map where I can see all the vehicles moving around. They're like ants. There's 500 of them moving all over the place. Wow. And they'll be coming to your community soon, but there is an overnight parking ban, so we can cut back some of those banks and clear them out the way they should be. So that's from 7 o'clock this evening. You want to make sure you keep your car off the street.
Patience is the name of the game today, Councillor.
It is.
Councillor Tim Tierney, thank you for your time always.
Thanks so much, Sam.
Tim Tierney, of course, represents Beacon Hill, Searville. Some good news there about Wellington Street, going to be opened heading towards the end of March. Talked a little budget, talked a little snow. Always lots to talk about with Tim Tierney. When we come back, we're going to talk to Dr. Paul McPherson. I have spoke with Dr. McPherson before. It is always such an incredible conversation. It's something very unique to our city. You will not want to miss it. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
When it comes to drugs, how much freedom is too much for kids? Drugs are out there. Will my teen feel free to say no around other kids? I didn't live drug-free when I was younger. Can I admit that to my kids? Drugs worry me, but how can I feel free to talk about it with my kids?
Questions about drugs and kids? Call or chat to get real-time support.
On Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa, Lux Blooms and Flowers Cafe will be joining us on the show. They're going to showcase some of their beautiful arrangements and also some of their delicious baked goods. And if you haven't visited yet, it is one of the best places to take selfies. It's an absolutely amazing, gorgeous space. Also, we'll be telling you about the 40 Items in 40 Days Challenge, all in support of diabetes awareness. All that and more on Tuesday's Daytime.
Hey everybody, my name is Karen. I'm here with my best friends Shane and Monique. Join us on Rogers TV for Fitness Faction. Every week we're going to take you through a full body workout. We've got strength training, we've got cardio, we've got HIIT. Ladies, let's get back into it.
I think we've got 10 more skaters. Let's go.
time on Simply Cooking by Chef. With the cost of food constantly on the rise, we can't afford to let good food go to waste. I'll show you how to whip up a tasty and healthy meal with on sale and discounted items, which will save you a few bucks as well.
Your City News forecast for today could be a windfall of cash. With our weather guarantee, if we're off by 3 degrees, you could win. Enter at ottawa.citynews.ca. And if you hear your name on Wake Up with Rob Snow at 7:21 a.m., call in to claim your cash. The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I welcome this conversation. It's been a long time since I've connected with Dr. Paul McPherson from the Ottawa Hospital. Hello, Dr. McPherson.
Hi, Sam. Great to talk to you again.
It's always a pleasure. And a number of years ago, I'm thinking 5 years ago,
maybe,
you and I had a conversation about research in terms of gay men's health. And walk me through why, you know, the emphasis has been put on gay men's health.
Well, I mean, it's one of many minority groups that we need to improve our healthcare delivery to. So we've taken on gay men's health. This I should say, was really rooted in community involvement. So guys in the community who really felt that their healthcare wasn't optimal, and so they strove to make this happen. So, the credit goes really there. The things that we're trying to understand better really are probably threefold. One are the social determinants of health for gay men. One of the things in medicine, I'm kind of sorry to say, but medicine really looks at gay men and looks at the sex we have as really our only social determinant of health. So everything that happens to us in our health gets related back to how we have sex. And that's really a very limiting view, both of us as people, but also of our health and our health care. Everything is not about our sex, right, or how we have sex. We have many social determinants of health. And so we need to explore those better, understand them better from the guys in the community so that we can deliver better health care to them. And one of the things that speaks to that are the mental health challenges that we see in the population. We did 2 surveys of gay guys, one particularly men living in Eastern Ontario, and one of gay and other guys with sex with other men across the entire province. And mental health issues came out loud and clear. So we saw very high rates of anxiety, depression, and sadly to say also physical abuse by family. So these are large social determinants of health that have been largely ignored among gay men. So this is another area we need to learn more about and find out how to deliver better, mental health services to the gay population. And when I say gay, I'm very inclusive. It's hard to know what the right word is anymore, right? But gay, bisexual, men who may not identify as gay but have either sexual or romantic relationships with other men. I think the third thing we really need to do is understand better how gay guys interact with the healthcare system and to support healthcare providers in providing comprehensive, relevant healthcare to gay men. So one of the things that came out of our survey is 1/4 of gay men don't disclose their sexual orientation or at least sexual activity with their healthcare provider. And that varied also depending on where guys lived. So in downtown Ottawa, about 20% of guys don't disclose to their primary care provider. But if you go out to the towns surrounding Ottawa, in the more rural parts of the region, about 40% of guys withhold that information from their healthcare provider. So that makes it somewhat more difficult to have meaningful conversations and optimize healthcare delivery if guys are feeling wary and uncomfortable in disclosing their sexual activity to their primary care provider. So these are things we need to work on both sides and help healthcare providers approach this topic sensitively and give them the tools they need to deliver that comprehensive, relevant health care.
Paul, talk to me a little bit about the first hospital research chair in gay men's health. I mean, this is, from what I understand, very unique.
Yes, this is very, very, very exciting, and again, I have to give credit where credit is due. Absolutely, it's just some and even one particular guy in the community who really brought this forward. So we were doing focus groups a number of years ago, probably back before you and I even first talked, and we were talking about the limitations and challenges in understanding the health and healthcare needs of gay guys, and one of these guys just said, why don't we create a research chair in gay men's health if there's a lot of work to do? And I'll be honest, I just kind of went, seriously, nobody's going to be interested in that, right? The hospital, the university, they will not see this as a priority. And he pushed forward. He's like, well, it's not going to happen if we don't try. And took it to actually first to the Ottawa Hospital Foundation, and they were very interested, and we did fundraising, and the university, the hospital, Department of Medicine all stepped up and said, yeah, this is clearly an important health issue for people. I've never been more wrong in my life, I don't think. The chair became a reality. So it is the first, certainly to my knowledge, of any academic hospital in the country that's prioritized gay men's health and made efforts to make improvements there.
And I think, Dr. McPherson, anything we can do, I mean, we've just come through this pandemic, or we're still in it. I just had COVID last week, actually.
Oh, boy.
So, I think any opportunity for someone to feel comfortable enough to share with their physician anything about themselves, and for that physician to take that on, look at it from a health perspective, and make sure that that patient is getting the best care that they can. That's the goal, right?
Oh, absolutely, right? And that's just, we need to help give people some tools to do that. We need to make sure healthcare providers are comfortable and understand. I think sometimes, it's possible that guys may disclose this, and then the healthcare provider is just kind of like, oh, I don't know what to say next, right? Or they're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing, or they're not sure exactly how the delivery of healthcare might have to be nuanced. And it's possible that just uncertainty comes across as non-acceptance, right? So we just have to give people the tools so they know what to say, so that both the patient and the physician are comfortable moving forward and getting the information they need. So yeah, we want to really help both sides in this interaction.
I have to say, I'm just kind of mentally doing a calculation. Probably over the last 5 years here at City News, I have done anywhere between 10,000 and 12,000 interviews. And the interview that I did with you and with a gentleman, and he basically came out on the air to talk about the importance of this, is probably one of the top interviews I've ever done that I will take on my heart and remember forever. So thank you for that. And you have an open invite here anytime, okay?
I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Dr. Paul McPherson joining us from the Ottawa Hospital, talking about this exciting first hospital research chair in gay men's health. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
This Tuesday, February 28th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, under a snowfall warning, -5 in Smiths Falls. There's a weather advisory. It is -3. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The significant snowfall today continues to affect the morning commute. City News reporter Chris Curris has the details.
It's been a greasy drive with a lot of blowing snow leading to low visibility. A lot of issues with Ottawa school buses, which are running this morning but experiencing major delays. The City of Ottawa's Bryden Denius on when residential streets might get cleaned.
We'd most likely be getting into residential streets during the nighttime hours. There is an overnight winter weather parking ban going into effect tonight at 7 p.m.
He says the lateness is generally due to the storm starting later than they expected. OC Transpo warning of delays as well, and we should expect to see about 15 centimeters total, and that comes with possible freezing drizzle this afternoon. Chris Curry, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
The snow is tapering off for the afternoon, but some freezing drizzle in the forecast. We could see a little bit of mixing as those temperatures climb to a guaranteed high of -1. Overnight tonight and through tomorrow and Thursday, there's still this chance of flurries. So we're in somewhat of an unsettled weather pattern, but the main event was certainly the heavier snow this morning. The guaranteed high today, -1.
City News time is 11:02. A GoFundMe has been set up to help those displaced after an apartment building fire in Overbrook. 53 people are displaced after the fire on the 21st. A 31-year-old woman has been charged with arson. The Overbrook Community Association set up the page to help those affected with their immediate needs. The fund has grown to over $5,400. Anna Stefanovici with the association tells Wake Up with Rob Snow any help is appreciated.
For anybody else who can give $5, $10, $20, doesn't matter. All they have to do is Google GoFundMe support Overbrook Fire, just these 4 words, and it's boom. It's the first thing that pops up on Google.
And the campaign is scheduled to close on Sunday. And experts say commitments to tackle racism in the Canadian workplace have not been met with enough action. The Insight Company's a new KPMG survey that suggests more than 70% of Black Canadian employees experience racism or microaggressions on the job.
The survey of 1,000 self-identifying Black employees about 2 months ago also found 88% feel companies need stronger commitments and targets for hiring and promoting Black people. Terasai Madambi, who co-leads KPMG's Black Professionals Network, says it's not enough for companies to set diversity targets or to set up racial equity committees. She urges them instead to walk the talk on anti-racism commitments that follow the 2020 murder of George Floyd in the States, and to listen to the recommendations of their racialized employees. Karen Rebo, The Canadian Press, Toronto.
I am Damilola Unime. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, the doctor's making a house call here at City News today, and that is Dr. Christopher Labos is joining us, cardiologist and medical journalism freelancer. Hello, Dr. Labos.
Hello.
Lots to talk about with you today. So I have to tell you, first of all, I finally got COVID.
Oh, dear.
So I avoided it for 3 years. I don't know how that happened, but I got it last week, and I'm still recovering. That's normal, right?
It is. I mean, the unfortunate reality is that some people recover very quickly, and some people have symptoms that persist for a very long time, and it's not unusual for people to still feel not sick, but not quite normal for weeks or even months afterwards. I get referred to a lot of patients who are like, I have this catch in my chest. I feel a little bit short of breath. And when you question them, you find out that it all started after a COVID infection. You do all the relevant testing. You find out that there's no blockage. They haven't had a heart attack or anything like that. And you say, look, it's really the residual of the symptoms, what we call long COVID. And most of it does get better with time, but some of it persists. And this is the unfortunate reality of the virus.
If the elephant could get off my chest, that would be fantastic. It just feels like, that's how it feels to me. I'm so grateful for all the guidance you've given us over the last 3 years in terms of COVID. I think it was just, and it still is, it's just changing all the time in terms of what we know about this disease. It's not over, right?
Unfortunately, no. I mean, things are stable. We're not seeing huge upsurges like we have in the past, so things are stable. One hopes that things are going to even decrease as we get into the summer months, because we haven't really had a decrease in COVID. I mean, we sort of had spikes and waves, but they've never gone down afterwards. They've gone down a bit and then returned to baseline. So we've never had a no COVID situation. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it would be nice to see things decrease over the course of the summer. And then I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen next fall. We will have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
Absolutely. Always keeping us up to date here on City News. Thank you for that, Dr. Labos. Let's turn our eyes to alcohol. Some new guidelines have come out in regards to alcohol consumption. What is being recommended now?
Well, I think what the most recent Canadian position statement on this was really reflecting the sum total of what the scientific evidence shows, which is that there is no real safe level of alcohol consumption, the same way that there's no real safe level of French fry consumption. Alcohol is not good for you. A lot of the things that people say about, red wine being good for your heart and all that, it actually isn't really true. A lot of it is a statistical artifact, the French paradox, which was popularized by the 60 Minutes story back in 1991, is actually explainable away using mathematical models. So it's not really true. Red wine is not good for you. And I think what we've seen is that the risks associated with alcohol consumption, be they cardiovascular risks or cancer risks, start to go up at a much lower level than I think most people realize. Most people, when asked, would be like, well, I can have 2 drinks a day or 14 drinks a week and I'll be fine. And the reality is that it's much less than that. It's definitely less than 7 drinks per week. And the most recent guidelines have suggested that it's probably even lower than that. And so all the people listening to us now will be healthier if they drink less alcohol. And so you've seen this argument going on now, like, what is the actual recommendation? And the actual recommendation is probably as close to 0 as possible, because frankly, the more you drink, the higher the risk. Now, when you're going to 1 or 2 drinks over the course of the week, the risk is probably minimal, and it's probably minimal even at 3 or 4 drinks per week. But as you start pushing that, the risks start to go up, and I think that's the real take-home message there, that it really does appear to be a linear association, that the more you drink, the riskier and the more risk you're going to accrue because of it.
So I'm going to ask a very silly question, which you're always so gracious when I do this. Are we talking about everything being equal, meaning beer, wine, liquor?
Essentially, yes. Now, the doses are different. So a unit of alcohol or a standard drink is going to change in size depending on the percent alcohol calculation. So when we're talking about red wine and beer and spirits, the sizes of a drink are different. And what's interesting is that the size of a standard drink is usually much less than what people think it is. So the example that I love to ask people is like, how many drinks are there in a bottle of wine?
I have no idea.
Yeah, so most people would say, well, you split a bottle of wine between 2 people, maybe between 3 people, so there's 3 servings of wine in that. The reality is there's 5 servings of wine in a bottle of alcohol. So if you wanted to have a standard drink, That's 1/5 of a bottle of wine. So a bottle, if you're a quote unquote moderate drinker and you drink a safe level of alcohol, if you open up a bottle of wine, you should be splitting that amongst 5 people and not consuming any more than that. So it is a size thing based on the percentage of alcohol in there, but I think there's a growing realization that there's nothing really fundamentally different between red wine versus white wine versus spirits. The idea that there are antioxidants in red wine that are somehow beneficial has not really held up, because to get an adequate level of antioxidants from red wine, you would have to drink gallons of the stuff on a daily basis, which would kill you from alcohol poisoning long before you extracted any cardiovascular benefit from them.
Right. I'm like the wrong person to ask. I have maybe 5 drinks a year. It's just never been my thing. But talk to me about butter tarts. That's a whole other thing. So basically, when we think about, these guidelines, there has been a lot of pushback. People are saying, but I want to enjoy my wine, beer, spirits, etc. What do you say to that?
Well, here's the thing. If you want to do something, you can do it. Nobody's actually telling you can't. And in fact, the guidelines that were put out, it's almost wrong to call them guidelines, because they weren't telling people you need to do this. They were telling people, look, we've reviewed the evidence and the risk starts to go up at a very low alcohol threshold. So even if you're drinking 3 or 4 drinks per day, the risk is going to start to go up. It's a minimal risk at the beginning, but the risk is going up. So it's really more a reflection to make people aware of the reality of the scientific evidence, because there are still a lot of people who think that red wine is good for your heart, and it is not. I have people coming up to me saying, I had a heart attack, I should drink 2 glasses of red wine a day, right? And I'm like, no, please don't do that. First of all, there's a lot of sugar in red wine. Just on that level, it's not great for you. So the point is this, is that if you want to drink red wine or alcohol of any kind, you can do that, but don't think it's good for you. It's like lying to yourself is rarely a productive strategy. And I think that's the point that people need to remember, is that we can't lie to ourselves. If you want to drink red wine or alcohol, you can do that in the same way that you can eat ice cream or French fries or potato chips, but do it with the recognition that it is an indulgence and that it's something akin to junk food in a way. Think of it as dessert. You can have dessert, but you shouldn't have dessert every day, and you shouldn't have a lot of dessert, because that's going to cause you problems in the long term.
Right. Are you seeing, Dr. Labo, still the consequences of COVID, not only from a COVID perspective, but all of the tests that would have been done over this 3 years? I think about colonoscopies and mammograms and all of that. Are you seeing the ramifications of those tests being not administered to the level that they should have been, the ramifications of people now showing up not just with cancer, but full of cancer?
Yeah, there is some of that. It's a very hard thing for you as an individual to perceive, because it happens at a system level. And that's why you sometimes need to zoom out and look at the system, because it would be very easy for you as an individual to say, I don't know what you mean. I've been working full tilt this entire time. I didn't ever not see my patients, right? So it's very easy to say that this didn't lead to any problems, or it's very easy for you to remember, the few examples where things went disastrously bad and say this was a terrible situation where people didn't get the testing that they needed. The reality is that this was a difficult time for everybody. It caused systems-wide delays in a lot of things. There's still a surgical backlog that we're trying to work through, and it seems to be getting worse, not better. So there's definitely been downstream consequences of COVID to the system as a whole, driven in no small part by the fact that a lot of people left the system. A lot of people just quit healthcare, and staffing has become a persistent problem, and it's just making the wait time issue worse and worse and worse, and it's taking longer and longer to get tests done, when unfortunately that's why you're seeing more and more privatized medicine. In the absence of a public healthcare system where people can get the tests they need, they end up turning to the private system, and that's why you're seeing more and more private clinics for blood tests, some diagnostic testing, and more physicians that are just either can't or don't want to work in the public system anymore and say, you know what, I'm just going to go into the private system where at least I have more logistical control over what's happening. And so that's why I think you're seeing a very different healthcare system now than you were back in 2019.
We're coming up to that grim milestone of when the pandemic was sort of announced by the World Health Organization. We are basically 2 weeks away from that. If we look back to 2020, February 28th of 2020, could you have ever imagined it would be this long, Dr. Labos?
No, and I don't think anybody did. I think many of us thought, oh, maybe it'll be a few weeks, maybe it'll be not worse a few months, it'll get better in the spring and summer, and it'll go away, and it'll follow the usual seasonal pattern that most infectious illnesses have. I don't think anybody would have thought that it would persist this long, because I don't think people expected the virus to change as much as it did. And that's what really, I think, threw everything through a loop. Had there not been new variants, had it just been the original Wuhan strain of COVID, it probably would have followed a very similar pattern to SARS, what we experienced back in 2002, where there was a surge, it went away. Eventually we developed a vaccine for COVID. Things would have been drastically different had the virus not changed. This is the thing that makes it a persistent problem, is that it keeps mutating, it keeps changing. And, that's why the vaccines were not as helpful as we thought we were. When people saw 95% efficacy, I think most people said, well, pandemic's over, now we have the vaccine, it's just a matter of time. And the constant mutation of the virus is just what's allowed it to persist as a public health problem for these, over 2 years, going on to 3 years soon.
Thanks for chatting with us, as always, Dr. Labos.
My pleasure. You take care.
Dr. Christopher Labos spending time with us today, cardiologist and medical journalism freelancer, talking about, COVID, alcohol. We talked about lots of stuff. When we come back, Gary Dimmick is going to be on City News. If you have never heard Gary Dimmick, you will want to stay right where you are. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Today, I helped a senior find transportation to an important medical appointment.
Today, I helped a new mom find virtual programming so she didn't feel so isolated.
Today, I helped someone understand new government supports.
Every day, 211 navigators connect Canadians to critical government and community programs and services.
211. Help starts here.
Our ancestors came here from France to build a better life. We lived here happily for generations. Until the British decided they wanted our land. The men were called to a meeting and then imprisoned. They demanded we swear an oath to their king and took everything, regardless. We were forced from Acadie, the only home we knew. Mon Acadie n'existera plus.
From 1755 to 1763, over 10,000 Acadians were ripped from their homeland. Despite this, Acadian culture endures in Atlantic Canada.
The devastating earthquake that struck Turkey and Syria has left thousands of people dead, and many more have lost their homes. Millions continue to be in need of emergency assistance. The Humanitarian Coalition is responding to the urgent needs. You can help. Donate today at together.ca. That's together.ca. The Humanitarian Coalition. Together, saving more lives.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Hi there, this is Meg from Fit Over 50. In our next workout, we're going to be using weights for a full body workout. You can expect both beginner and advanced options. See you then.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's always a good day when we welcome Gary Dimmick from the Ottawa Citizen to City News. How are you, Gary?
Hey, Sam. Good to be on your show.
Always fantastic to spend time with you. If you are not reading Gary Dimmick, you need to do so starting today. You can follow Crime Garden. You always bring us these stories, Gary, that no one else is doing. This is another really good example today where you're speaking with a former ISIS recruiter denouncing jihad. Talk to me a little bit about this.
Oh, it's Oswa Peshteri is his name. I've been writing about Oswa Peshteri since his arrest, 2015. Been a long trial, off and on for 6 years. So it was back and forth. But last week he decided to pull the plug on his trial, and he decided to plead guilty to, terrorism, 5 terrorism charges. He was a reputed ISIS recruiter and a financer. He was at Algonquin College, actually. He was meeting different people, and he was the recruiter for ISIS, if you can believe that. But last Thursday, I think it was, we knew that this was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. His trial, he mounted an incredible defense across the years, and basically just drove a Mack truck through the RCMP informant that they used. But last Thursday, he decided, okay, that's it, I'll plead guilty. And so he stood up there and he did in court. He denounced jihad, saying he was ashamed for betraying his Ottawa family and the Ottawa Muslim community, right? And so then in a joint position, he gets 14 years, but for your listeners, 14 years isn't really 14 years. He's been in the clink since 2015. So after time served, that's pre-trial time served, he literally has 21 months left. So this ISIS recruiter will not see federal prison. He's got 21 months left to serve. So it's provincial time. He will likely, if he's a model inmate, as he has been, he will likely be out within about a year and won't see the inside of a federal prison. Some of the things that he said were, this is where we get to a point now where, the Crowns, they wonder, is this young man, is his remorse genuine? Is he really denouncing jihad? Only he knows. The judge was asking the same thing. Some of his statements, though, where he talks about what he did, I'll give you one thing that he said. He's kind of a soft-spoken guy. He stood up. He said, this is Peshteri standing in the court last week. He goes, I, with a voice embedded with growth, maturity, and years of reflection, denounce my previously held extremist beliefs. I do this with a confidence that only a person who has walked out of that path can understand. I'm thankful to have the opportunity to continue my life, and I hope my experience can be a learning lesson for those who have had similar ideologies. What's also interesting about a terrorist, they don't usually talk publicly like this, or in this case, I should say a former terrorist. What's interesting in this case is that he talked about the fact that you don't usually hear terrorists or any so-called bad guy say this. He said he thanked the Mounties for his arrest. He thought that it was God, quote, God's favor to him, that they intervened finally and got him off of that path, that dark descent into violent extremism. So pretty interesting days down at the courthouse.
Well, Gary, you're at the courthouse a lot. You are, you bring us, like I said, the stories that nobody else is covering. This seems so unique to me. I've never read anything like this. Is this just my perception?
I don't know. I think, if you get 300 people in a room, everybody's got a different perception of it. I find it interesting. I've written about this guy for a long time. A lot of your listeners, they might not know Peshteri, but they might remember John McGuire. Now, he was he was in that worldwide. It was a famous video. ISIS put him as the poster boy. You know, the white North American Canadian small town boy, John McGuire, and he was in a propaganda video condemning the infidels. And McGuire is believed to have been killed over in Syria. Peshteri would have been his recruiter. Background of McGuire is he was just 23, and he was one of Peshteri's recruits. He was a regular guy in Kentville, beautiful little town. He grew up playing, hockey and punk rock, just like a bunch of other kids. He was going to Ottawa U, and then he got right entrenched in this whole jihad thing, And his mom, McGuire's mom, she read a pretty eloquent and victim impact statement. It was pretty moving. She said, this is, her son's dead over in Syria, believed to be dead. She said, there was nothing quite, this is what, stuck with me. There was nothing quite like you losing a son this way. Like, what do you say? It'd be easier if it was an accident or some crazy illness. This is, sorry to hear your son died. He was a terrorist, right? Mm-hmm. So these days she avoids, those once happy occasions. Thanksgiving is hard for her because it's close to Johnny McGuire's birthday. And, she basically described him as, a regular, vulnerable young man starting university with his life ambition was clearly not to be an ISIS fighter. And she said when she's walking around, because small towns are small towns, either everyone's really friendly or they're nosy or maybe a bit of both. But she's walking around her small town. She says sometimes she's walking around, she feels like she's walking around with a big red sign on her forehead that says, "Terrorists, Mom."
Wow.
Not a great label in a small town.
No kidding. Gary, it all sounds, we only have about a minute, but this all sounds like a movie almost. Like it doesn't seem real.
Well, hey, who knew that you had jihadists training in Gatineau Park with pellet guns, right?
Wow.
That's not in the story. But the other interesting thing is the RCMP informant that they used, Abdullah Milton. He was a one-time friend of these guys. He was paid, he was making minimum wage. The Mounties approached him, and he was paid at least $800,000 that I know of, tax-free, to basically inform on his one-time friends.
$800,000?
That's all I could account for. Wow. I would presume it's more. But yeah, $800,000 cash money. You only pay taxes on the RCMP money if you want to pay taxes. Nobody comes after you. There is no T4. It's basically a backpack of money. Literally, in this case, it was. And Milton, it couldn't have come at a better time when the Mounties come to him because he was making no minimum wage job. He had been married 7 times, has several children. He's probably early 30s. He was teetering on bankruptcy when this happened, and he was on welfare at the same time.
Wow. And
in his scorecards, CISA screened him out, and they said he was a parasitic, pathological liar. But the Mounties used him anyway, and they won their case at the end of the day.
Gary, I am so grateful for you bringing these stories. I could talk to you forever. Unfortunately, we have to go to the news. Gary Dimmick, thank you so much for doing what you do.
Take care, my friend. I'm more important. The news is more important than me.
No, not at all. Gary Dimmick, appreciate your time. Gary Dimmick,
of
course.
You, Sam. Bye.
Love you too, Gary. Gary's from the Ottawa Citizen Crime Garden. And if you're not following him, you need to do that. He brings us stories that no one else is talking about. But we do here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
For 25 years, you've been helping to make our roads safer by doing the right thing. You've been the designated driver, you've stayed over, called home, you've called a cab or a friend, and planned ahead. Let's keep doing the right thing. Support sober driving by getting yourself and your friends home safely.
Do the right thing.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with The Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, February 28th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, under a snowfall warning, -4 in Smiths Falls. There's a weather advisory in effect. It is -2. And here's what's making news this hour. The roads are still messy as the snow continues into the afternoon. City News weather specialist Denise Andriacha telling us the bulk of the heavy snow will taper off in the afternoon hours with upwards of 15 centimeters of snow in the forecast. If you plan on taking transit, make sure to give yourself lots of extra time for your commute. Some OC Transport routes are either cancelled or delayed. Make sure to check the transit website or travel apps for your bus or train time. And a citywide overnight winter weather parking ban will go into effect at 7 p.m. to allow crews clear the snow off the roads with ease. The Police Services Board is severely limiting public participation. This is according to the group Horizon Ottawa. The Police Board at its meeting yesterday passed a motion to update its bylaws. Horizon Ottawa saying those bylaws limit people who want to address the board to only 1 hour total. Individuals will have 3 minutes to speak. As per the bylaw, presenters also have to submit a written submission of their address in advance. According to Horizon, board member Councillor Kathy Curry is also suggesting a further tightening of the bylaws later in the year with extra measures, including limiting addressing the board to once a year per person. City News time is 11:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it seems like every single day we're talking about a sporting organization that's under some sort of scrutiny. And today it's Canada Soccer. We wanted to speak with Alex Sixero, my colleague here, sportscaster at City News. Hi, Alex.
It'd be nice if we could just talk about the results on the pitch, but unfortunately, Sam, that's not the case.
Exactly. And it just, and really, Alex, it seems like every week, whether it's gymnastics, hockey, soccer, the list goes on and on and on. We saw the resignation yesterday of the head of Canada Soccer Association, Nick Bontis. This is not a surprise.
No, it's not a surprise. It was just a matter of time. I think a lot of people had lost faith in his leadership from, the players. Clearly, the men and the women did not believe he was the right man to lead Canada Soccer going forward. I think a lot of the fans across the country, to be honest, myself included, weren't really thrilled with the way he communicated to the fans. His press conferences were interesting, to say the least, and there's a lot of questions that have gone unanswered. And I think a lot of people, including fans across the country, are just wanting transparency in terms of why aren't the women's team getting the same perks that the men did? Why are their training camps getting cut? Why are they not allowed to have a send-off game at home before they go to the Women's World Cup this year? Why have both the men and the women's budget's been cut in half this year after the men went to the World Cup last year, and Canada Soccer, supposed to receive a decent amount. So, transparency has been a big part of it, but a lot of people lost faith in his leadership, including the 13 presidents of the provincial and territorial soccer federations in this country. The news came out yesterday that they pretty much came together and said, we want you out. And it was just a few hours later that Nick Bontis wrote to the board of directors that he had stepped down. So not a surprise. But it's also very interesting because, there could be some hearings in Ottawa with the Heritage Committee in a couple of weeks. I think Bontis is still going to be speaking at that. And I think, Sam, it would be very hard for him to sit in front of that committee still as the leader of the Canadian Soccer Association, explaining why the women aren't getting all these perks and why, these labor deals are not agreed to yet. It's going to be a lot easier for him to talk to, the MPs over there, having already resigned, as opposed to still being the leader and nobody having faith in his leadership.
Well, and you should probably pass him a calendar and tell him it's 2023. For the type of work that the women put in and the pride that team has brought to this country, and to not be on, excuse the pun, a level playing field with the men, it just seems so 1952.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a disaster, and it's embarrassing, frankly. When the women released their statement weeks ago before the She Believes Cup, and I went through it, I couldn't believe the stuff that they were having to navigate towards. And we even learned this morning through some reporting from Rick Wested of TSN, who's, to his credit, he's been all over it, that in November last year, when the World Cup was happening for the men, I believe the women had a couple of games in Brazil. I think it might have been a couple of friendlies. And apparently they were told that Canada Soccer had no money to send them, and some private donor ended up pointing up the money that they were able to go make the trip and play the games. I mean, this should not be the case for the reigning Olympic gold medalist, right? It doesn't make any sense. So I think Nick Bontis did a really poor job communicating to many people across the country, and maybe we'll get answers next month at this committee. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical, but I think whoever takes over, and I think we might find that out next month because obviously it's an elected position, has to do a better job communicating, okay, why aren't the women getting what the men did? Why are both the men and the women's budgets being cut by 50% after the men just went to the World Cup and got money from FIFA? These are all questions we should have answers to, and we don't. So hopefully down the road, whoever is leading this organization can just do a better job communicating, because one of the many faults that I think from Nick and Earl Cochrane, who's the general secretary at the CSA, is they've done a very poor job communicating to Canada Soccer fans what's going on, why are things happening the way they are.
Well, and I think it sends a really poor message to young women, to be honest with you. I mean, my daughter plays soccer. She's loving Stephanie LaBelle, and she's loving, Christina Sinclair and all of the players that just put their heart and soul. And I've had numerous conversations, I'm sure you have as well, Alex, with these players over the years. And, they're telling me they're having to also have jobs, and I know that might sound funny to somebody, that somebody has to have, but playing soccer at the level that they're playing is a job, and they're having to subsidize that, sometimes paying for a lot of those costs out of their own pocket.
Well, I'm in the same boat. I have two young girls who are 10 and 8. My 8-year-old plays in Oakville here, just west of Toronto. She's just kind of starting in a program to see if she wants to get into competitive levels, and these are the type of conversations I have with parents almost on a weekly basis. I mean, think about what the women are having to deal with, Sam, and it's not like they're, the 36th ranked team in the world, right? They're not. They've been a top 10 team for many, many years. They won the gold medal at the Olympics recently, and they have a really good chance to win the World Cup this year in Australia and New Zealand. So just think what would be happening if they weren't at the top of their game. Like what they're saying they have to go through, to me, sounds like, they're playing in a country where soccer, it just doesn't matter. It's just like an afterthought, right? Here in Canada, yes, the last couple of years, especially for the men, it has grown to a place we've never seen before. But at least for the women, they've been almost carrying this program for years and years and years. And it is stunning to hear the hurdles that they have to climb through. And these are the conversations I have with my wife. Like, my daughter's, if she turns out to be good and she wants to continue, registration fees are a big part of what, Hockey Canada does, what Canada Soccer does. But in 3 years' time, if these issues aren't resolved, is this something I want to do? Do I want to give money to the Ontario Soccer Association through Canada Soccer when I see how they're, how they're dealing with these women?
Yeah,
the answer is clearly no.
Exactly.
So
Feel the same way.
I don't know who's going to want this job. I think it's going to be very fascinating, Sam, to see who wants to replace Nick Bontis. Hopefully it's someone that maybe doesn't necessarily have a strong connection with Canada Soccer now and maybe can bring an outside perspective on how we make things right. But clearly I think there's a mandate for how to do this job. And unfortunately what Nick was doing, it wasn't good at all.
Can we talk about how fantastic Bev Priestman has been?
She's been great. Look, we obviously don't have a clear vision of what happens behind closed doors, but even just listening kind of to her, her press conferences leading into the She Believes Cup a couple of weeks ago, that obviously the Canadian women played under protest. They tried to strike, and Canada Soccer threatened legal action. So that was obviously very ugly, and credit to the women for fighting through some really tough games under really tough circumstances. But it seems like she really has the players back, and she understands what they're fighting for, and she's with them. I think I think almost anyone really in that position, Sam, who is seeing what they're having to go through on a daily basis, training camps cut, personnel numbers having been cut because just not enough money to send players to these camps to prepare for a World Cup of all things. She really has the best seat in the house to see what these women are going through. And, she's in a tough spot too, because, Canada Soccer obviously is her employer, and perhaps she can see what's happening from both sides. But like she said, leading into the tournament a few weeks ago, she just wants this resolved. I think everybody wants this resolved. I think we need a collective bargaining agreement for the men and the women in place for many years. We need the women and the men to make the exact same amount, and I'm confident that's going to happen, Sam. It's just a matter of time. Mm-hmm. But until the documents are signed, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. So again, that's something else that, I believe Earl Cochran, again, the General Secretary, has done a fair bit of the negotiating with the Players Association to try to get this over the finish line. But the longer this takes, the more headaches it provides. And we saw what happened last year in the build-up for the men, where they obviously were in Vancouver for that friendly game, and they decided to not play the game under protest. And the women just played the tournament under protest, and they have a few more games set for April, and they say that if this is not in place and they're not happy with what Canada Soccer is telling them, that they're going to strike in April and they're not going to play those games. So a CBA needs to be put in place as quickly as possible. I thought it was going to be done before the Men's World Cup, and I was wrong. And I really hope now this is going to be in place before the women go to Australia and New Zealand. But with the way things happened last year, I'm not going to bank on that happening. But the sooner these deals can be put in place and both the women and the men are happy, the quicker we can get Canada Soccer back on the map, because we are definitely on the rise. This should be an exciting time for both programs. It has been for the women for many years. For sure. For the men, we're just kind of getting there. The last 2-3 years, we've really seen the group ascend. But Canada Soccer now is being talked about more across the world, and most of the articles I'm sure people are reading are, the association has another labor issue with the set of players. Here we go again, and it's time for this to stop and to just bring a little more cohesion to the groups.
And Alex, when you think about what's happening in society, gender issues, racial inequity, sexual harassment, sexual abuse, these are all playing out not only in society as a whole, but really a spotlight put on so many of these sporting organizations. And to your point, when we first started chatting today, Sam, I wish we were just talking about the scores today, right? Mm-hmm. These social issues really play out in sports, and it's a shame to see these organizations that so many of us for many years sort of held on a bit of a pedestal, and to see them kind of crumbling a little bit.
Well, and that's why I applaud the women for doing what they did. I can't imagine it was easy to come out with those statements, come out and do interviews and explain every single thing that they're going through. And I don't know how they played that tournament a couple of weeks back. They played the U.S. the first game, and you could just kind of tell that playing the States is tough enough, but playing the States with this huge cloud hanging over your head, it just makes it even that much tougher. And they just, you could tell they weren't themselves, and then they bounced back the following game. But, I applaud them. I think they've made many fascinating points. I think we're waiting for Canada Soccer to come out and either counter them or explain why there are budget cuts. Why are the women having a tough time preparing for the World Cup? This shouldn't be the case. But I really do applaud them and Beth Friesman for coming out and saying what's on their mind and letting everybody know what they've been dealing with. And the men kind of did this to a point last year too. But I think as an organization, Canada Soccer needs to grow up a little bit, like we've talked about. Maybe this next president can help the CSA get there. But, I thought after what happened last year with the men skipping out on a game in Vancouver with, fans already at the stadium, inside, in their seats, ready to go, and then hours before the game, Canada Soccer says that the game is canceled. This can't happen anymore.
No.
I feel like these things just happen to, soccer federations that are just that don't have their stuff together, that aren't kind of where Canada is right now. And unfortunately, Canada, from both the women's and the men's perspective, are at a very high place. But it doesn't feel that way when we're constantly talking about, what is Canadian soccer business, this deal that Canada Soccer signed with? Where's the money gone? Why are there budget cuts? Why can't the women have a proper camp leading into the Women's World Cup? I thought that, especially after what happened last year with the men, we would be over this. Unfortunately, we're not. But hopefully for the women, it gets resolved soon because they deserve to have a proper training camp, proper resources. They have a very good chance to win the World Cup this summer. So I hope things change around quickly for the better for them because they obviously deserve it.
Very helpful today, Alex. You helped break it down beautifully for us in terms of Canada Soccer. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, Sam. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure as well. My colleague, Alex Sixero, sportscaster, of course, here at City News. When we come back, it's all about inventions. I love Tuesdays. We get to spend time with Ben Wise from the Historical Society of Ottawa. What was invented in this city? Well, we're going to find out. Come on back on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Next time on Simply Cooking by Chef. With the cost of food constantly on the rise, we can't afford to let good food go to waste. I'll show you how to whip up a tasty and healthy meal with on sale and discounted items, which will save you a few bucks as well.
On Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa, Lux Blooms and Flowers Cafe will be joining us on the show. They're going to showcase some of their beautiful arrangements and also some of their delicious baked goods. And if you haven't visited yet, it is one of the best places to take selfies. It's an absolutely amazing, gorgeous space. Also, we'll be telling you about the 40 Items in 40 Days Challenge, all in support of diabetes awareness. All that and more on Tuesday's Daytime.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
Hi, I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Everyone loves a snow day, but less fortunate kids in Ottawa are missing out because they don't have a warm winter snowsuit. Help kids in need and have fun at the same time by joining the Snowsuit Fund's Snow Angel Challenge. Simply fall back in the snow, make a snow angel, and upload your photo or video to social media. The Snow Angel Challenge, a very cool way to help keep kids warm. Visit snowsuitfund.com to learn more and donate.
Your City News forecast for today could be a windfall of cash. With our weather guarantee, if we're off by 3 degrees, you could win. Enter at ottawa.citynews.ca. And if you hear your name on Wake Up with Rob Snow at 7:21 a.m., call in to claim your cash.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, we take a time once a week to look back, to find out how we came to be as a city. And we love doing it with the one and only Ben Wise. How are you, Ben?
Good morning, Sam, and welcome back.
Well, thank you.
We're going to talk about inventions and innovations that may have happened here in Ottawa or nearby, or have invented by people who have connections to Ottawa.
It's wonderful.
And I think we're continuing a bit of a sports theme this morning. Sam, do you enjoy those Super Bowl commercials that go viral every February?
Well, of course, yes.
A favorite of Canadians this year was Dave Grohl doing a commercial for Crown Royal, saluting Canadian inventions. In the commercial, the Foo Fighters lead singer enthusiastically lists off iconic Canadian inventions, everything from pineapple pizza to peanut butter to paint rollers. He mentions a couple that have local connections to the Ottawa area. Basketball, of course, invented by Almon's James Naismith in the late 1800s, and instant mashed potatoes that were developed and patented by researchers here at the experimental farm in the early 1960s, for better or for worse. Now, one he didn't mention was the Macintosh apple, grafted in an orchard just south of here back in the 1800s. Here, the team at the experimental farm again played a role when the Macintosh skyrocketed in popularity after one of the experimental farm's top horticulturalists gave the apple a huge endorsement. Now, you have to be careful when you say somebody invented something. I mean, apples, for example, have been around for a very long time. They're probably the first fruit mentioned in the Bible, and not necessarily in a good way.
Right.
The invention of hockey is something else that gets argued about a lot. I'm sure that even back in prehistoric times, a few of our furry ancestors would have picked up sticks and discovered how far they could knock a small stone or piece of wood back and forth on a frozen pond. But most agree that it's a long-time Ottawa civil servant who is now widely considered to be the father of ice hockey. Imagine, Sam, you've had a 48-year career in Ottawa as a civil servant, and you say, oh yeah, by the way, before that, I invented ice hockey.
Right. Wow.
Actually, James Elwyn Creighton would probably rarely have said that. He was very modest about his role. But what Creighton did back in his university days in Montreal before coming to Ottawa was he conceived and organized the first ever indoor game of ice hockey. Kids, including Creighton himself growing up in Halifax, had always hit balls around with sticks on the winter ice, sometimes calling it ricket, sometimes even calling it hockey. But this first proper game with James Creighton as organizer and captaining one of the teams was the true birth of modern ice hockey. It was the first organized game with fans in the stands in an indoor rink, not a random game played on some pond by kids. It had rules. This week marks the anniversary of that first public exhibition game of ice hockey. Back on March 3rd, 1875, the whole city of Montreal went wild for the game. Teams and leagues were soon formed, and the modern game quickly began to take shape. The ice hockey craze soon spread to nearby Ottawa, too. A big reason for this was the Governor General, Lord Stanley, who loved sport and embraced Canadian winters. By this time, James Creighton had graduated and relocated to begin his 48-year career here in Ottawa with the civil service. We've talked before about how Lord Stanley and his sons started up a team called the Rideau Hall Rebels because they decided that Toronto and everybody else beyond Ottawa had to hear about this great new sport of ice hockey. And the team traveled around the province in the Governor General's private rail car playing exhibition games. Well, guess who they picked as the team's first captain? James Creighton, of course. James Creighton, now an Ottawa civil servant, captained that team. Beyond hockey, Creighton was well respected in his long career here in Ottawa. He was a longtime member of Ottawa's Rideau Club, and that's where he eventually died many years later of a heart attack in 1930. Former Prime Minister Sir Robert Borden attended his funeral, and Creighton is interred at Ottawa's Beechwood Cemetery.
Oh, interesting.
He was inducted into the Nova Scotia and Canadian Sports Halls of Fame, and there's a plaque in Creighton's honor at the Bell Centre in Montreal.
I had no idea. No idea.
Speaking of inventors, it's interesting that before his Montreal days back in Nova Scotia, Creighton had studied surveying under Sir Sanford Fleming, who, of course, would also later end up in Ottawa and become famous as the father of standard time. That was his invention. And no conversation about inventions and discoveries would be complete without mentioning that researchers at the National Research Council have been responsible for hundreds of inventions and innovations over the years. Everything from cardiac pacemakers to electronic music synthesizers, much achieved here in their laboratories and workshops right here in Ottawa. We can't really talk about innovation without mentioning a pair of fellows who grew up in Laprade Flats in the mid-1800s and ended up involved in just about every aspect of electrifying Ottawa, from our electric lights to our streetcars. Some of us refer to Thomas Ahern and Warren Soper as Ottawa's dynamic duo. Thomas Ahern himself registered over 23 U.S. and Canadian patents, but more than anything, Ahern and Soper excelled by embracing the cutting edge of all the new technology that was coming out around the world, especially anything electrical, and finding ways to bring it to Ottawa. In the days before electric stoves became widespread, when they were still a brand new invention, Thomas Ahern demonstrated one by serving the world's first meal cooked entirely by electricity here in Ottawa at the Windsor Hotel at the corner of Metcalfe and Queen in 1892. This was decades before electronic stoves or ovens would become common in people's homes. Thomas Ahern was also said to have been the first to own a car in Ottawa, and of course it was electric. I'll talk more about Ahern and Soper in a future show. But in the meantime, I'm very excited to announce that we've just put out a fantastic new pamphlet about Ahern and Soper, written by Brian Cook, and it's a great read, and it's available to enjoy online on our website. And one more thing about Ahern. His son Thomas Jr. ended up being owner of the Senators during the era when they won their last Stanley Cup in 1927. So look at that. We're back talking about hockey again.
I love it. Full circle for sure, Ben. You're always doing something awesome at the Historical Society of Ottawa. What's on deck?
Well, Sam, we've talked a lot about hockey today and the many men, including Lord Stanley's sons, who were involved in its beginnings. Well, tomorrow is the beginning of the new month, and March is one of the 2 months in the calendar widely celebrated as Women's History Month. So within the next few weeks, I promise to put the spotlight on the women who took to the ice in our early days, including Lord Stanley's daughter, who appears in the earliest known photograph of a woman playing hockey here in Ottawa. And I'll talk about Ottawa's groundbreaking early women's hockey teams, including the Ottawa team that won the first Ontario Women's Hockey Championship exactly a century ago this coming month. And I'll also share recollections of a young woman named Barbara Ann Scott, who didn't play hockey, but wowed the world as an incredible figure skater, winning not only Olympic gold, but hearts across the nation, earning the title of Canada's Sweetheart.
For sure. My mom still cherishes her Barbara Ann Scott doll. All these years later.
I think the museum has those. So next week, Sam, your listeners are going to have a chance to come and see you in person, because on Wednesday, March 8th in the afternoon, you'll be joining us as guest speaker for our Historical Society Speaker Series at the Downtown Library Auditorium.
I cannot wait, Ben. I am so excited. It's International Women's Day. We're going to be talking about really my first 90 days, or our first 90 days of COVID, and what it meant to be a broadcaster during that time. I cannot wait to spend time with all of you.
Absolutely. We're so sorry. We're so confused. We're so scared. You've got some incredible stories to tell us, Sam.
I certainly do. Ben Wise, always a pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you so much. Ben Wise joining us, Historical Society of Ottawa. We are getting ready for lunch. Who have we invited to the table today? Larry O'Brien, former Ottawa mayor, Dean Tester, housing advocate. Well, and you. Come on back to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, February 28th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, -4 under a snowfall warning. In Smiths Falls, there's a weather advisory in effect. It is -2. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The City of Ottawa's draft budget includes an additional $3.5 million for winter operations. City News reporter Chris Curris with the reaction.
It's a small piece of the multi-billion-dollar pie, but the City of Ottawa's Bryden Daniels tells me it will help with growth.
One of the big things we see every season in the City of Ottawa is we do have growth, right? So the city is physically building new subdivisions. That comes with new roads and new sidewalks that need to be maintained.
The area manager of Urban Roads says there are some inflationary pressures as well, but it's mostly for maintaining services year-round. Later this year, there will be a winter maintenance quality standards review where the city will review snow clearing operations. Chris Curry, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
That snow still impacting the roads across Ottawa, and we're in for still some freezing precipitation potential throughout the afternoon. So the bulk of the heavy snow is tapering off throughout the afternoon, but we also have that risk of some freezing drizzle mixing in. This is as temperatures climb to a guaranteed high of -1. Overnight tonight, we're down to near -8, and we have a chance of flurries Wednesday, Thursday. The guaranteed high today, -1.
City News time, 12:02. There will soon be 40 locations throughout Ottawa where automatic speed cameras will catch those going over. 17 additional cameras either being installed or will be installed, City Councillor Riley Brockington tells us. These cameras are being installed mainly to curb behavior and not as a cash generation tactic for the city.
This doesn't go into the open coffers of the city. Again, it must go back to road safety. This is implemented, and why I support it is it's got to curb behavior. We have a speeding problem in this city. I'm particularly concerned about residential neighborhoods where speeding is out of control in many neighborhoods, and police can't be everywhere.
11 of the new cameras will go up in school zones, 2 close to parks, and 4 along high-speed roads, which have a history of things like street racing. City staff say they use several criteria to determine where the cameras will go, including collision history, speeding, schools in the area, and feedback from the Ottawa police. And China is firing back at a U.S. government ban on the TikTok app, saying it reflects America's insecurities. As of yesterday, the White House gave all federal agencies 30 days to wipe TikTok off all government devices. And the Canadian government following suit today with the Chinese-owned video sharing app no longer available on government-issued mobile devices. TikTok has questioned the bans, saying it has not been given any opportunity to answer questions, and governments were cutting themselves off from a platform beloved by millions. I am Damilola Onime. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here on City News. It is lunchtime, which means we invite a few people in for lunch. Today, we've extended the invitation to Larry O'Brien, former Ottawa mayor. Welcome to the table, Larry.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to the table. And could you pass the mustard, please?
I will pass the mustard, absolutely. Well, we'll maybe ask Dean Tester to do that. Dean Tester's here, housing advocate with local group Making Housing Affordable. Welcome to the table, Dean.
Great to be here.
Lots to talk about today, gentlemen. Let's talk a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed, either one of you, it is snowing outside. Let's talk a little bit about winter tires. Larry O'Brien, do you have winter tires?
Absolutely. 100%. I fully support. As a matter of fact, I think they should make it mandatory.
I agree. I'm with you. Dean Tester, do you think it should be mandatory?
I definitely think everyone should have them and everyone should be using them. I have some questions about how we'd actually implement that and enforce that, but my goodness, if you live in Ottawa and you don't have winter tires, you're just putting yourself and other people at risk.
Absolutely. I mean, Quebec does it, right? It's not even a question in Quebec in terms of driving. You need to have winter tires. So it's done elsewhere. I think the challenge that many people have talked about in terms of the province of Ontario is that, other regions, unlike the Eastern Ontario region, maybe doesn't experience the kind of snow we do, that type of thing. So lots to talk about, but certainly from a mandatory perspective, I refuse to drive in the winter without winter tires. I just will not do it. And you're with me, Larry.
Oh, absolutely. However, I'm cheating a little bit. I'm down here in Florida right now, so I get out of the winter tires a different way.
Okay, well, I still like you. So there you go. Even though you're in the sunny south, it is snowing here, and we are keeping an eye, of course, on the snow. Our meteorologist Denise Andriacci, she's keeping an eye on what's happening out there, and we're getting updates throughout the afternoon. So you'll want to stay with City News. Let's talk a little bit, Dean, about the speed cameras. We know that they are all around the city, and you see the signs, municipal cameras in use in this particular area, a lot around school zones. How do you feel about the possibility, because of course the budget is all being passed tomorrow, how do you feel about more speed cameras in Ottawa? Dean?
Well, I think like everyone, I have kind of mixed feelings about this. I understand people get upset. If they get dinged, they're doing one or two over. Nobody wants that. But at the same time, I see people in my residential neighborhood in Barrhaven doing 60 or 70 on a road that's rated for 40. And, we're right by a school. There's all kinds of people out walking their dogs, kids getting to and from class. And, it's just... It's kind of irresponsible, and the city has no other mechanism to crack down on it. You can't just have police cruisers cruising around Barrhaven looking for speeders. I mean, that's a waste of resources, but we do have a speed camera in the school zone near me, and I know people who've got dinged and they weren't happy about it, but it makes everyone drive slower, and I feel a lot safer on that road now, and I think the kids are a lot safer too. So I think that's a good thing.
And we spoke a little bit earlier with councillor from River Ward, Riley Brockington, about the speed cameras. Here's what he had to say.
Despite what people think, this is not a deliberate cash cow. That's not intended. This doesn't go into the open coffers of the city. Again, it must go back to road safety. This is implemented, and why I support it is it's got to curb behavior.
Do you agree, former Mayor Larry O'Brien, in terms of this? You must have received many, many calls regarding speeding during your time in office.
Absolutely, and I'm 100% behind it because it does change behavior. My behavior changes when I see these signs just telling me what speed I'm going, let alone the threat of a speeding ticket. So I think Riley got it right on the, hit the nail on the head. I'm a libertarian by nature, but I have maybe an imperfect libertarian, but I have no problem with regulations and systems like this that curb dangerous behavior. And it's not for the person driving the car; it's for that poor child walking across the street, or mother pushing her baby. You just need to bring the speeds down in some of these areas. And I live in the Barrhaven area as well, in a 40 kilometer zone, and I see it the odd time. Fortunately, in my neighborhood, only the odd time. But I don't hesitate to put my hand up and try and get them to, if I'm walking, try and get them to slow down. So the more help, the better in this situation, because one needless death, one needless injury, it's all worthwhile. And in society, we have to sort of gather together the odd time and stand behind one concept. And this is on the list of infringements on personal rights. This is very mild.
Absolutely. I'm going to tell you a bit of a secret, Dean. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
So I received a ticket last August, and I was in an area, and it was near Mother Teresa. It was on a Saturday near Mother Teresa High School in Barrhaven, and I got the ticket maybe, 5 or 6 weeks later, and I thought, oh my heavens, I was mad at myself. I wasn't mad at the fact there is this system. I was mad at myself, and I'll tell you, no one drives slower near Mother Teresa High School than Sam Laprade. So it works, right, Dean? I mean, once you get a ticket, you definitely do sort of think, well, I don't want another one of those.
Yeah, you learn your lesson, and I know that stretch of road very well because I live right by there, and I got to tell you, it's a lot of folks will be tailgating me on that stretch of road because I'm doing 39, 30, 38 just to stay under the limit here, and as soon as they see those signs, they're like, oh, I get it.
Right.
Right. They back off and they realize, there's a reason why the people are driving slow here. And so it's good. And I think school zones especially, it makes a lot of sense, residential neighborhoods. And like I say, police don't really have another way to enforce these rules, but they're rules for a reason. If you look at the difference between being in a motor vehicle accident at 40 kilometers an hour versus 50 or 60, the survival rates and injury rates drop so dramatically. So just, take your time. It might cost you 30 seconds on your commute, but to keep our community safe, I think it's worth it.
100%. Larry,
what about the red light cameras? Do you feel the same way about those?
I do, because honestly, if I'm flying through a red light, I absolutely should be dinged, because the reality, Larry, is I could have killed someone else, or killed myself, or injured or killed my own family. I really feel strongly about red lights. How about you, Dean?
Yeah, I think I agree. And, we've all had the dilemma where, should we go through or not? It just feels like you're really close, and especially in the winter when the brakes are a little less solid. But the reality is, if you're not speeding through the light in the first place, you're probably able to stop on time. So,
Dean, I'd like to see the stats on that. I completely 100% agree with you regarding speeding and the dangers, but I'd like to see the stats on just what the reduction in accidents are as a result of someone slipping a half second through a red light. And if the stats support it, then I'm on side. But I haven't seen any of the stats regarding that particular issue. 100% with you on speeding, and question mark on the red light for me.
Yeah, it's going to be certainly interesting to see these. How many they implement. It seems like every time I'm driving, I see one that I hadn't seen before. So maybe it's just, maybe I'm just paying more attention, which is always good. Dean, let's talk about affordable housing, and we've talked about affordable housing a lot. Is this city council committed to affordable housing, do you think?
Well, look, if you had a conversation with any councillor, they would tell you that they support affordable housing and we desperately need more, and they wish we had more. But what happens is we go to these meetings and there's always seems to be community pushback from folks who don't necessarily want to be housed in the same neighborhood as folks who need affordable housing. And that's really sad and unfortunate. And it's hard to see councillors who say one thing and do another, which is exactly what happened yesterday at Planning Committee. We had this beautiful proposal in Orleans for a 30% affordable housing development put forward by the United Church, who has a bunch of empty land, and they wanted to put up affordable townhomes for people. We've got 12,000 plus people on waiting lists for social housing in the city. We've got hundreds of people living on the street, and City Council said no to this development yesterday because they didn't think there was enough parking, which is such a preposterous reason. I don't know about you, but if I can barely afford to have a roof over my head, I probably don't have two cars. It was just extraordinarily frustrating to watch, especially from councillors who I know in their hearts, they tell me they support affordable housing. They think it's really important. But then they go and vote against it for, kind of made up reasons because there's community opposition. And our planning system has all these perverse incentives where you have a planning meeting that's at 9:30 a.m. in the middle of a workday, and the folks who show up are typically retired because they have time to show up in the middle of a workday, and they are almost always opposed to change in their neighborhood. And that's not representative of our broader city. I think most people would welcome affordable housing to their neighborhood, but city councilors only hear from the people who show up to these meetings, and the whole system is stacked against getting affordable housing built and getting any type of housing built.
Mm-hmm. Larry, what do you think?
Well, I agree completely with Dean, and you're spot on in your comments, and it was one of the bigger surprises I had during my short term as mayor is just how many really good ideas like that could be resisted by seemingly good people for reasons I couldn't fathom, and it sort of brought me around to thinking that there's some other ways of collecting community feedback. Maybe in this digital age of ours that we could, with all the security and things like digital governance and what have you, that we can get a better feel for what the public really feels. Because often, like you said, Dean, there's this need, and maybe we have to have a better take a better poll of the people, so that maybe the councillors can't act in the way that they seem to be acting recently. I saw that. I read about that project out in the East End, and I was quite surprised, particularly when it's on an LRT route, or planned LRT route, that you don't need to worry about parking. I think you'd be surprised, Dean, how much a person on the right and can fit into this, but there's this needs to change, and as you said, 12,000 people on a waiting list is just way too many for a city as prosperous and as progressive as Ottawa.
100%, and we're just not making any dents on those lists, which is very, very frustrating. We're having a fantastic lunch today. We want you to come back and join Larry O'Brien, Dean Tester, myself. I'm going to be here, and you're going to be here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
We fought our way through Italy and then headed for Amsterdam, sweeping for Germans along the way. Our worst fear was to catch a bullet in these last hours of the war.
I was 15 when the Nazis invaded the Netherlands. More than 100,000 Dutch Jews never came home. Our men were put into forced labor. By 1945, we were starving. The food drops gave us hope. And then the Canadians came.
Before Amsterdam, I couldn't have explained why we were there, all those years away from home, but the Dutch showed us why it mattered.
Papa wanted me to bring some soldiers home to thank them personally. And that's when I first saw Wilf. And I invited him over that afternoon.
Marguerite Blaise married Lieutenant Wilf Gildersleeve. They moved to Vancouver, where they raised 8 children. Today, the Dutch still remember the Canadians who liberated them.
As the fighting continues in Ukraine, thousands of people are fleeing for their lives, forced to leave everything behind. You can help them. Your donation to the Humanitarian Coalition will provide food, water, shelter, and medical care to the people of Ukraine who urgently need it. Call 1-855-461-2154 or donate online today at together.ca. That's together.ca. The Humanitarian Coalition. Together, saving more lives.
Hi there, this is Meg from Fit Over 50. In our next workout, we're going to be using weights for a full body workout. You can expect both beginner and advanced options. See you then.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's lunchtime. What's on the menu for you today? We're feasting on the top news stories of the day. Dean Tester's here, housing advocate with the local group Make Housing Affordable. And he's joined at the table with former Ottawa Mayor Larry O'Brien. Let's talk a little bit about Wellington Street, Larry. It has been obviously a very challenging year for people living in the downtown core, for tourism, for businesses. The list goes on and on and on. That reopening of Wellington Street, in my mind, can't come a minute too soon. How do you feel?
This is wonderful today. We're all in agreement on just about everything. Unanimous agreement, 100%. That road has to be opened, and what's the date that it's going to be opened?
We spoke with Councillor Tim Tierney today. He didn't have a date. What he did say to me was it was going to be closer to the end of March.
Okay, great.
And he also had this to add, Larry.
Maybe on a weekend, when it's not a work week, we could have some kind of festival, maybe some street hockey, and we can quickly, it's very easy to put temporary closures at the end of the streets and do some kind of festivals or kind of a dinner night on the street. So lots of talks have already started around that. So it's going to be an exciting year for Wellington.
Larry, are we going to see you out there playing hockey or having dinner? Larry?
You know, I could be back by then. I might come back down. I'd celebrate that opening.
There you go.
It was a brutal period in our city's history,
for sure,
and very much an inflammatory topic when you brought out the trucker strike. But it's good to see that's past us, and it's good to see that we're getting back to normal.
Dean Tester, are you going to
truckers? Yeah,
I was going to say, Dean, are you lacing up and heading down when they have some festivals there in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this speaks to a broader vision for what we want to see downtown. I think I lived downtown for a good chunk of my life. I lived in center town, and I loved my neighborhood, but I wish the downtown was a little bit more lively. I wish we had more things like that, and I like the idea of Wellington potentially becoming a pedestrian space. I love the idea of having more festivals and things like that there. We see a lot of that on Bank Street during the year, and that can be sometimes disruptive. So, maybe having a permanent space for it would be nice. Mm-hmm. The other piece that I would add here is if we do in fact go ahead with some of what we're talking about when we say we want to convert offices into housing, and obviously there are towers going up everywhere downtown. We need to make that neighborhood more pedestrian friendly, more bike friendly. It would be easier for folks to get around down there. Quite frankly, on the best of days, it's not a nice place to drive, and I don't think Wellington being open will change that. But it is a valuable public space. So I look forward to seeing what the downtown revitalization plan looks like and what role Wellington has on that.
It's going to be really interesting. We know, of course, as well, tomorrow, big day, March 1st, for the City of Ottawa in terms of that budget. Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, it's his first round. If you were grading Mayor Mark Sutcliffe on his first 100-plus days, Larry O'Brien, what kind of grade are you giving him?
I'm giving him a B+. He seems to be doing... he's working out of the shadows of Jim Watson, right? So this is a tough act to follow, and he's come out and he's starting to build consensus. He's fortunate that he has a new group of councillors, and he's able. They're all learning together how to come together and make decisions. So I think he's showing a lot of promise, and I'd give him a B+ at this point. But the final term mark is going to be given after the budget tomorrow.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. Dean Tester, how are you grading our new mayor?
Yeah, so I've got a mixed feedback here. I would say in terms of bringing folks together and having council work in a cooperative and constructive way, it's an A for me. I think the fact that we see, councillors who come from very different ideological backgrounds working together really well on committees and things like that, it's a huge improvement. The adversarial attitude at City Hall seems to be gone, so that's really positive. But in terms of implementing actual policies that are going to help the city and in doing some of the things that he said he'd do in his platform, I mean, we haven't seen anything on housing yet, and that was one of the biggest parts of what he said he'd do. I'm still waiting to see on a lot of the policy stuff. I think he had a lot of good ideas during the campaign. The budget's a good chance to implement them, but I just haven't seen enough yet.
Okay, he's 100 days in, or just past 100 days. So I agree. I think he's done a great job. He's, and I mean this in the most positive way. He's made it a bit boring again, right? In terms of just no ridiculous scandals and all of that stuff, right? Which is what you want. You want a steady hand there for sure. Larry, let me ask you: are you saddened about TikTok? Are you going to be taking TikTok off your phone and not doing those dances anymore?
I took TikTok off my phone about 6 months ago,
right?
Because I was addicted to it. It was just too good, and I found myself wasting way more time than I should.
Right.
And I heard, and that was about 6 to 8 months ago. The U.S. the Americans started talking about security risks. So I said, okay, this is a chance to do two good things: give myself a lot more time back in my life, and two, maybe prevent me from being part of a security issue for North America. So I'm not saddened. I'm on the 12-step program to get rid of some of these social media platforms.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I took it off my phone last night, and we know federal employees, if they had a phone that was given to them by the government, it was removed from their phone today. No more TikTok for federal employees. How about you, Dean Tester? Do you still have TikTok?
Well, I got to say, in my day job, I run a digital marketing agency, so TikTok is definitely part of what we do, and Canadians use it. They love it. We're all addicted, as the former mayor can attest. I might need to get on his program, whatever it is, because I have a hard time getting off my phone too. What I will say is that if you look at what the opposition Conservatives did, Pierre Poilievre says he's deleting it, and his entire caucus is removing their accounts. Well, Pierre had something like 3 million followers on TikTok. These are people he's not going to be able to reach anymore. And quite frankly, it's a lot of young Canadians who were interested in his policies on housing, for example. Definitely one of the ways that he was really effective in reaching young people. So I'm curious about that as a political move. I think it's a little bit performative, and nobody told him he had to do that. And I think it might actually hurt his chances to win the next election. I don't know if other leaders will be making the same choice.
Yeah, I heard Jagmeet Singh was going to remove TikTok as well, or remove himself from TikTok. And it's going to be interesting to follow that story. Listen, I've enjoyed my lunch with both of you today. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Larry O'Brien spending time with us, of course. Former Ottawa Mayor Dean Tester, housing advocate with the local group Make Housing Affordable. When we come back, it's the OBJ Business Lunch on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with The Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting sober driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talking while their porridge began.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa Storytellers. Each week we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm Justice. And I'm Nia. And we believe dreams fuel revolutions. That's why we're engaging with Canadian icons and the causes they support. Join us for these inspiring conversations and find out how you can be revolutionary.
One for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It is Tuesday, February 28th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, under a snowfall warning -4. In Smiths Falls, there's a weather advisory in effect. It is -2. And here's what's making news this hour. Another day, another weather system, this time with 15 centimeters of snow in the forecast by the end of the snowstorm this afternoon. If you plan to use public transit on your commute, give yourself lots of extra travel time. Some OC transport routes have either been cancelled or are delayed. Check OC Transport's website or travel apps to confirm your bus or train time. There's also a winter weather parking ban going into effect at 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. tomorrow. An Ottawa area resident is smiling to the bank after a big OLG Instant Crossword Deluxe win. 59-year-old Edna Mendoza is the lucky winner of $250,000. She's planning to save some of the cash for retirement, a trip to the Philippines, and also to save some for her son. The winning ticket was purchased at Loblaws on Baseline Road. City News time is 12:32. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Business Lunch on City News, brought to you by the Ottawa Business Journal.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, I'm still very excited today because it's the second day of our new partnership with the OBJ, the Ottawa Business Journal. This half an hour is all about business. It is the Business Lunch, and now we've engaged in this incredible partnership with the OBJ, and we're very, very excited about it. So welcome to the OBJ Business Lunch. We wanted to put a bit of a spotlight today on a couple of new companies, and today we're going to talk to Majin Majali Hypolit. How are you two?
Hi, we're doing fantastic.
Lovely. And I take it you're sisters, Majine.
Yes, we're twin sisters.
Twin sisters. I love it. So, Majine, tell me all about Frizz.
Okay, so it's frisé.
Oh, frisé. Thank you.
Yes, it's okay. It's French for curly. So curl, it means curls in French.
I love it.
And so frisé came about because we decided to eat well. And so at one point, you become aware of what you're putting on your body. And so the products that we were using for our products for our hair, we started to be conscious of what we were putting on our hair as well. So, and the other reason for it is because we couldn't find products for our hair when we decided to stop wearing the relaxer. So the relaxer is a product that we use to straighten our hair. So when we decided to accept our natural curly hair or kinky hair, we decided that, okay, we need to find products to be able to do our hair. And so there was no products and there was no salon at the time to care for our hair. So that's how it started. Do you want to add something?
Oh, Majali, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What's it like to do this with your twin sister?
It's amazing. I can tell her the brutal truth all the time.
I love it. I love it. And I can imagine, Majali, what it's like. Like I admire beautiful hair, and I know it's a lot of upkeep, but I think a lot of people don't understand that. Walk us through, some of the challenges that women from the Black community face in terms of their hair.
Okay, so in terms of our hair, I think that, so we come from a time where we used to wear the relaxer, and I think sometimes it's a mindset. So the relaxer was making it easier for us to manage our hair because it was straight permanently. So we didn't have to deal with the texture, detangling the hair, and so and styling it. So that's where the challenge is. So the challenge comes from the mindset first, to be able to accept the texture that you have. For any person that has textured hair, whether Caucasian or Black, it's a challenge to decide to just keep it curly, because you have to know that you have to section your hair, to style it, to detangle it. It has to be detangled properly. And so you have to have water, good products. Yes, it is a time consuming, but if you feel that you are worth it, you will put the time into managing, knowing, and caring for your hair.
Wow. That, you know what, there's just so much in that, because I think it is such a reflection of who we are, right? I think, and people sometimes just don't put that kind of energy in, but it has so many benefits, Majine, in terms of, the way that people sort of see themselves on a daily basis. It's not even so much how people perceive us, but so much is it about how we perceive ourselves.
Yes, and it's true, because, well, what happens is that we're so bombarded by all these images of women with long, silky hair, actually blonde. Now it's changing a lot.
Right.
So we see more different textures, more people. There's more representation. So the more we have that, the better it is, so that it can make it easier for other people to embrace who they are. And hair, a lot of people just say, oh, it's just hair, but it's not just hair. You can tell a lot by your hair. You can tell if you're healthy. You can tell if you're spontaneous, if you're fun, if you can show your personality through your hair. And so that's why, for me, hair is not just hair. It's really it's a way to express yourself and show that you've accepted, especially in the textured world, that you've accepted what you have, instead of straightening it to make it look some kind of they would say, in quote, sophisticated. Yeah, to conform.
Right. And Majelli, let me ask you this. I know the Ottawa Business Journal did this great article on you and really trying to draw attention to your business. Those kinds of nods in the community of reaching out and even having you on the air today and talking about your business, is it really your goal to make sure that no one feels alone in this? Because I've read a lot in terms of women in the Black community and their hair, and it can feel isolating because, to your point earlier, there isn't a lot of places for people to turn. So are opportunities like this from the Ottawa Business Journal, for instance, do you see people walking in going, I didn't know about you?
100%. Yes. So yes, for sure. And when we have the opportunity to talk to different telecommunication, it makes people aware that we are here. We're here to help, and we do have the product, the service, and we can coach people to know how to take care of their hair. So yes, it's definitely a way for people to be aware of the services that are available to them.
Well, you two made my whole day. I love the fact you're twin sisters. I love the fact you're doing this together. And I love the fact it's called Frisé Frisé. I love it so much. Majin and Majelli Hippodite. Thanks so much for spending time with us today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a fantastic day.
That was a wonderful conversation, and we're ending Black History Month, an opportunity to share about another Black-led business in this community, and we appreciate that opportunity. Now, I was thinking about something sweet today, and when I think about something sweet, it means I need to call Earl Stanley, and he joins me now. Hi, Earl.
Afternoon, Sam.
Earl Stanley from Stanley's Maple Farm. Are you getting ready for a busy time, my friend?
We're getting ready for the best season of the year.
It is a sweet time. So walk me through what happens in the next 6 weeks or so for you.
Well, this weekend we're opening up. We won't have tapped very many trees yet because the weather's still not quite cooperating, but we're welcoming everyone to the farm. We're going to have wagon rides, tapping on the snow. Guests will be able to go to the barns, to the farm animals, down to see where Claude will be getting ready to make maple syrup when the sap flows. And back this year, we're going to be able to open up the pancake house.
You had me at pancake, Earl.
Well, I'll be back in the kitchen flipping pancakes Saturday morning, and we're looking forward to 6 weeks of everybody coming out and enjoying them.
That's fantastic. So does it take us right to Easter? I'm trying to calculate that.
Past Easter this year.
Okay, fantastic.
And actually, because the couple weeks before Easter and Easter weekend, we do our annual Easter egg hunt.
Right. So much fun. It's a family tradition, right, for so many.
We have families coming back where the mom and dad came as kids, and now they're coming back with their kids. So that's, after 30 years, it's great to see families coming back and making Stanley's a tradition in their family.
Oh, I love hearing that, Earl. And walk us through the business of maple syrup. Is it really dependent on Mother Nature in a way?
Mother Nature's in charge. As usual, the ladies telling us what to do. We have to just accept the weather that we get. On this farm, everything's tapped with buckets, so we don't. There's no pressure used other than what the sun creates. You know, we have other farms where we are using vacuum, but here we tap the trees the old traditional way with the buckets and the spiles, and we gather the sap and boil it with wood.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, I was on Stanley's Maple Farm Facebook page last night, and I noticed that you do meals to go. I didn't know that.
On Thursday nights, we have a take-home meal.
Okay.
So actually, Chef Nate is in the kitchen getting ready, and this weekend we're doing a chili. We had a chili cook-off last weekend for a charity function, and we made extra. So this weekend we can do chili and buns for everybody for a take-home meal.
How smart is that? And who's coming, Earl, to that? Like, is it people from Metcalfe and Embrum and even Finley Creek and Russell? Is that who's sort of showing up?
Pretty much. We have some going to Orleans and some going out towards Winchester. You know, we're trying to it's not a big item on the farm. It's something to keep everybody going. It's a little more chance to try out new recipes, and that's the nice thing. We have people buying dinner that we can go ahead and try new recipes to see if they will work for the wedding industry.
Right.
And
so smart.
And we have some of them available, like our soups and stuff, that are available in the gift shop on the weekends.
So I stop in there to get my buns once in a while.
I love making fresh buns for you, Sam.
It's fantastic. So walk me through, basically, are people, I'm just trying to get an understanding of, post-COVID, right? So are people just showing up, or are they getting tickets in advance? What's the process for the maple syrup season this year at Stanley's?
Colin's sitting here with me. I'll let him explain that because he's the operations manager.
Okay. Hi, Colin.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Good. I've missed chatting with you.
I was just thinking that too.
I missed it. So what's the process if a family of 4 wants to come, have pancakes and do it all? How are they doing that?
Yeah, so there's no reservations, no buying tickets ahead of time, nothing like that. We're blessed to have so much space on the farm here that we don't really have to worry about capacity and things like that. So there's no pre-booking, anything like that. Whenever you show up at the gate, you can pay your admission for everybody, and then that gets you access onto the farm. Where, like Earl's told you, all the barn animals, the sugar shack, the museum, the farm shop, all that type of stuff is available. The wagon rides, there's lots of things going on.
Lots of stuff, for sure.
Yeah, and then if you want to, you can go into the pancake house, get your sugar bush breakfast, and then, of course, after your breakfast, have some dessert at the food truck with our deep fried pancakes.
Okay, now you're just teasing. That's fantastic. That sounds great. Colin, I know how hard you work, and I know you've got a great team there. Thanks so much for spending time with us, and I'll say goodbye to Earl as well. Earl, I hope it's a sweet season for you, my friend.
I hope so, too.
And I'll see you out there. I'm going to come out.
You let us know where you're coming, and I'll make sure we have fresh buns for you, Sam.
Can't wait. Okay, sounds great. Earl Stanley from Stanley's Maple Farm. We appreciate their time today. You'll want to make that part of your family tradition in the next 6 weeks. It's snowing out there, but don't worry. That's a great place to head, is to the beautiful area of Metcalfe. You can find them there. Always a wonderful visit. We make it part of our family tradition every year. When we come back, we have got... I don't even know how to explain how excited I am about this next segment we're going to be doing. We are going to be speaking with Mike Phelan, former Manchester United head coach, and player David Horrocks, former head of research and development for Manchester United. We're going to be talking about the business of soccer. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Next time on Simply Cooking by Chef. With the cost of food constantly on the rise, we can't afford to let good food go to waste. I'll show you how to whip up a tasty and healthy meal with on sale and discounted items, which will save you a few bucks as well.
Your City News forecast for today could be a windfall of cash. With our weather guarantee, if we're off by 3 degrees, you could win. Enter at ottawa.citynews.ca. And if you hear your name on Wake Up with Rob Snow at 7:21 a.m., call in to claim your cash.
On Tuesday's Daytime Ottawa, Lux Blooms and Flowers Cafe will be joining us on the show. They're going to showcase some of their beautiful arrangements and also some of their delicious baked goods. And if you haven't visited yet, it is one of the best places to take selfies. It's an absolutely amazing, gorgeous space. Also, we'll be telling you about the 40 Items in 40 Days Challenge, all in support of diabetes awareness. All that and more on Tuesday's Daytime.
It's closing time, and you stayed out longer than you planned. So now you can't drive, and the buses have stopped running. You could always call your girlfriend. Or maybe your roommate? What about your best friend? You could just dial 1-888-TAXI-GUY or use the Taxi Guy app. The call and the app are free, and they both connect you to a local cab company to bring you home safely. Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive, drive sober.
There we go.
You're going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
Causes of hospitalization in Canada, affecting everyone across the lifespan. But the future holds promise. Through groundbreaking collaborative research, the Ted Rogers Centre for Heart Research is improving the lives of Canadians, like 11-year-old Evan.
I have had 3 open heart surgeries at
Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the OBJ Business Lunch. We're so happy to have you here on City News. We wanted an opportunity today to talk about the business of soccer. And who better to do that with than Mike Phelan, former Manchester United head coach. How are you, Mike?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you here. And you brought a friend, of course, player David Horrocks, former head of research and development with Manchester United. Thank you so much, David, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. It's an honor to be on.
Oh, thank you. And Mike, when you think about this event that you're having today through Carleton University, growth mindset through the lens of a world-class football, in brackets, soccer team. What are you hoping to achieve today, Mike?
What we're hoping to achieve is to interact with the audience, really, and the participants from the point of view of how sport and business cross over, really. You know, we found that there's a lot of things that have been happening in sport, and certainly my experiences that do transfer across into the business sector, and certainly growth mindset comes into that category.
Absolutely. And David, what are you hoping to achieve from your perspective today?
We're looking to draw on the research that we've done and also that other people have done in the past in terms of facilitating and helping people achieve what they want to achieve, develop talent, and be able to apply things and sometimes look at them differently through the lens of professional sport, and use that analogy to look into their own teams, their own departments within business and industry. That could be sales, it could be marketing, it could be customer service, it could be talent development, talent management, and just help them to think differently, help them think outside the box, and hopefully inspire them to keep pushing forwards on their own journeys.
And Mike, you know, as a former Manchester United head coach, is a head coach equal to a CEO from a business perspective in your mind?
Yes, it certainly has its opportunities to make decisions. It certainly, you fit into the category of probably learning how to manage up as well as manage down. I think it's an important role, but where you sit in the establishment, you're there, of course, to work with both, you know, people underneath who demand a little bit more and want direction, and certainly at the top where you give opinions and you don't sit on the fence. You know, you ask the question, you try to give an answer. But ultimately, the decision makers are the chief executives. They're the ones that understand the whole picture. But we're there to help them along that path and hopefully inspire people to make decisions.
And let me ask you, David, when you think about growth mindset, we hear a lot these days about empathy of leaders, empathy, whether it be on the pitch or in the boardroom. Where in your mind, or does empathy and growth mindset intersect in your mind?
I think it does, because we're dealing with human beings at the end of the day. And we actually did a session last night in the university at Sprott Business School, where one of the questions that we received was about the welfare of human beings that are in the system. And that is important. And one of the key things that came out of Google's research as well is psychological safety, where people are free to express themselves, express the feelings. And I think if that's something that you have within a team and within an organisation, you get a relaxed nature, and that then becomes facilitative to people being able to push themselves and explore and experiment. So I think it's a key importance, in all honesty.
And we're speaking with Mike Phelan as well, former Manchester United head coach. Mike, let me ask you this. If you could go back and tell your younger coach self something, what would it be?
I would always try to be myself, and not be something that I'm not. I learned those lessons that you are who you are. You have your own identity, your own personality, and you need to bring that to the table. I think sometimes we try to manufacture people in a certain way, a certain direction. And I think when you start to deliver things in an organisation or a sport, that's easily found out. You've got to be real, you've got to be personable, you've got to be who you are, and you don't want to be false. And I think that's something that everybody needs to be mindful of, that most organisations, certainly sporting organisations, employ you to be you, to bring something to the table that you have. You have a unique idea, you have a unique personality. Bring that to the table and express that behind the organisation or within the organisation, and have that freedom to do that.
Amazing. I love that. David, is there still an opportunity for us to sign up? The event's taking place today at 4 p.m. on this Tuesday, the last day of February. Is there still an opportunity if someone's listening to say, hey, I want to be part of that?
Yeah, there is, absolutely. It's on Eventbrite. It's online. And if you look at Carleton University and Kanata, and it's also posted on Mike Phelan's social media feeds, yeah, the opportunity is still there. It's 1 o'clock now, so there's 3 hours before we meet up. By all means, anyone listening that wants to join us, you're more than welcome.
And Mike, when you think about everything that you have done in your career, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of having lasted the test of time, because in sport, and we all know that at the top level, it's pretty judgmental, it's pretty opinionated. So just to have lasted this length of time has been quite a journey. But it just shows that you can do it, you can dig in, you can find ways to excel, you can find ways to get to the top, and anybody can do it. You just need a little bit of luck now and again, be in the right place at the right time. But for me, yeah, survival is one thing, but it's a hell of a journey if you go on it within sport or within a good business aspect.
Beautifully said. And David, take me to your favorite moment on the pitch. Is there one moment that just makes you so proud to have played?
Well, I wasn't a player. My background is academic, so I worked in the psychology and science. I played youth football back in the UK and unfortunately didn't make it. But the proudest moment for me was actually being able to get back into the professional game as an academic and work at the top level in the fields of psychology and science. So I think what I proved really that failure is not the end, and I'm sort of living embodiment of that growth mindset to get back into the professional game as an academic and as a practitioner.
And we need you there. Absolutely. It's essential. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the event today, Growth Mindset through the lens of a world-class football/soccer team. The event is happening today at 4 o'clock. You can get all that information through Eventbrite. Another great example of the stories we tell on the OBJ Business Lunch on City News. We appreciate Mike Fellon and David Horrocks being here. And we really appreciate you being here. We couldn't do what we do without you. Our news team is getting ready to bring you the news of the afternoon. You'll want to lock it in, not only for the news, but of course, traffic and weather reports. Stay with us here on City News.
You've been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.